Thank you, alumni, current students of Randolph, and everybody else joining in to hear from this amazing entrepreneur and author, Trevor Cassaberry, CEO of Cassaberry Consulting.
How you doing, everybody?
Hustler. Go ahead. And again, man, I'm just really excited to talk to you today. Thank you for being with me.
Of course,
thank you. I want to get right into the story, but I want to talk about where you are right now. So can you tell me a little bit about Cassaberry Consulting and what else you're doing in your life?
So I graduated with an electrical engineering degree, or electrical engineering tech degree from University of Akron. I came back to New York. Within a month, I got a position as an electrical inspector. So pretty much I was working on New York State Department of Transportation contracts, in which we maintain the cameras and the big VMS signs. Those are the big black signs with the orange letters and numbers on it on the highways. So I went out with like electricians who were fixing the cameras and the VMS signs, and I pretty much made sure, the lane closure was up to code and the drawings, make sure they did everything up to the safety precautions, signed the time sheets, and kept records of everything that was done on that project. Right now, I'm on a new project with New York City Transit, in which we put in new bus systems. New radio systems in all the buses around the city, and integrating a whole private network. So it's like 30 different sites. So I was a construction inspector. Now they got me as an office engineer. So I pretty much do mostly construction management as opposed to being out in the field so much. And I also run Cassaberry Consulting, which is a corporate consulting firm in which we essentially teach businesses how to profit using government contracts and online businesses, as well as books and literary and digital content.
And how would people get in touch with you for your services?
For Cassaberry Consulting, they can go to cassaberry.com. /money. They'll be able to see our workshops that we have there, but if they just go to cassaberry.com, they'll be able to contact us. They can go to info@cassaberry.com to email us, or if they forget any of the websites, they can just Google Cassaberry Consulting. We're also on Instagram and Facebook at Cassaberry Consulting.
And let me say this, a little bit of advertisement for you, because I follow you and I pay attention to what you're doing online. For somebody that's looking to get into the stock market, for somebody that's looking to get into real estate, for somebody that's looking to start a business, I really suggest that people follow you. You got a lot of great advice. I bought the book. I think it's something that people can get a lot out of, and especially for people's attention span. It's built for kind of reference reading, which I think is something that is really special, because that's where people's heads are at, especially this generation. So without further ado, let's get into the story while we're here. Really relevant for the people that I'm targeting these interviews for, but for anybody that has or is wondering how to get from high school to a career like yours. Tell us about your high school experience. How did you get to Randolph, and then kind of walk us through that experience at Randolph?
So basically in 8th grade, I broke my leg. But before even breaking my leg, my 8th grade homeroom teacher, Miss Daniels, she was also my 6th grade homeroom teacher. She was my English teacher at the time. And the program I was in, every day we had double period English. And the first period of English, she would have us read in silence for the whole 45 minutes. My mom, whenever I got in trouble at home, she always sent me in the room to go read until I fell asleep, especially if it was, after dinner or something. So because of that, I always fell asleep in class and would get in trouble because of it. Eventually, she realized, it just was the way I was, and something that just wasn't stopping for some reason. So she told me about one of her college friends that was an engineering major that used to do the same thing, which is fall asleep while they were reading. She gave me his email address. We contacted each other like 2 or 3 times, and he pretty much told me about what engineering was and how, my background and being really good at math and science growing up would really help me if I wanted to go in that direction. So from that point on, I already knew I wanted to be an engineer. So when I applied for high schools and stuff like that in New York City, my number one choice was Randolph because I saw that they had an engineering program in high school. Even at the time, I didn't really know everything about engineering. I just knew I needed to figure out which discipline of engineering I wanted to choose. So by the time I got to Randolph, I knew, that was essentially my goal, was to figure out what sector of engineering I was going to choose. I didn't know whether or not Randolph would help me choose that, but going in, that was my headspace. That, and I wanted to play basketball. So breaking my leg in 8th grade kind of held me back from that because, I wasn't able to play that summer going into high school. But, that's where my head was going in, just engineering and getting on the basketball team. And the main reason I wanted to play basketball was to get a college scholarship.
And so how did you actually end up at Randolph?
I applied and I got in because it was my top choice. So once I got there, I went to orientation because, it's in Harlem. I'm from the Bronx, and my cousin lives in Harlem, so it's not like I was unfamiliar with where it was.
And I remember you telling me that you were definitely not going to school in the Bronx.
Oh, yeah. So the reason Randolph was the number one choice, besides the engineering program and, the fact that they have a basketball team, was, in middle school, I used to always get in trouble. If it wasn't for something in school, it was something at home. So I figured, when I picked my high school, I got to choose somewhere that's not close to home. So I was like, I'll go to high school, join the basketball team. It'll take me a longer time to get home because I'm in another borough. So by the time I get home, I'll only have enough time to do homework and go to sleep. So I'm not getting on punishment all the time. And that didn't even work out right away because my freshman year, I had missed a day of school because I had a doctor's appointment. So I missed an exam. And Miss McLean was the teacher. And at the time, she didn't have an answering machine. So her and my mom were basically playing phone tag because she wanted to confirm with my mom that I had a doctor's appointment and everything. So by the time the first report card came out, I never made up that exam because they hadn't gotten in contact with one another. So she said she'd just meet her at parent-teacher conference. So the first report card, I had a failing grade for that science class, and my mom wasn't trying to hear it. So she put me on punishment and said I couldn't even try out for the basketball team. So that's part of the reason why I even ended up on the step team, because when I went to that orientation at Randolph that summer, Albert Nixon, who was the captain of the step team, UB, he was on stage, talking about the step team, SBI, and all that stuff. So once I wasn't able to join the basketball team, it just so happened one day I saw him in the hallway. We both recognized each other, and he told me, come to the step team tryouts and everything. And
I think it's
showed up.
Interesting for people to know, like, how you got into stuff, who you met, and what influenced you. And I remember you saying that you made a connection pretty quickly with Albert Nixon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because once we saw each other in the hallway, he looked familiar to me, but I wasn't exactly sure where. I clearly looked familiar to him because he approached me, and he was saying he remembered me from the orientation. And he asked me if I was on the basketball team. I told him no, and I told him I was on punishment, so I couldn't try out. And he basically told me, well, you might as well come join the step team. And my sister, she's 6.5 years older than me. She was, the captain of her step team in high school. So I knew what it was. I just never did it. And so I went to the tryouts eventually, and there were more than just a couple of us trying out. It was probably like a little less than 10 people.
Speaking of Tamika, right? Tamika Cassaberry, your older sister, she gave you some advice. What was that advice?
Oh, she told me when I go to high school, pretty much try and make friends everywhere, especially because I was going to another borough, and she was a little skeptical of Harlem because she went to high school in Harlem at one point. She went to Manhattan Center. So she basically said, network with people and make friends everywhere in case something crazy happened. Somebody around will know me and they'll either help or find help. And, I never needed to, nothing crazy ever happened where I needed that, but I definitely took her advice.
I think that's so key. I mean, I think about, kids that, they're great at basketball, but they're totally focused to basketball, and then they get an injury, and then their world is rocked because their whole life, all their friends, all their connections, everything that they were building upon, their hopes and their dreams, the future, the goal that they had in mind, now because of an Achilles tear or something along those lines, it's all done.
Yeah.
So, having that rounded base and building your network beyond one specific segment, I think that's sage advice. And I was telling you, I think it's amazing not only that she gave you that advice, but that you took it.
Right. I didn't have an older brother, and she was like old enough, with 6.5 years that she was able to teach me everything. So, she was like an older brother and an older sister.
All right, so walk us through this journey. So I thought it was amazing that you were involved with SBI, the STEP team, right away freshman year. Walk us through the 4 years of high school, especially as you're getting towards junior and senior year and taking steps to get prepared for life after high school.
Yeah, so I joined the STEP team my freshman year. I was the only freshman on the team, so that was nice. I didn't end up playing JV basketball. I think I played like 2 games because the coach actually left a jersey waiting for me, and I didn't even like it. And the team wasn't very good. The coach wasn't very good, so I just didn't play. I still played outside.
Talk to us about that relationship. So you were super passionate about basketball. But
yeah.
and I think this story is not unfamiliar to many kids going through school. They may be passionate about a subject like math or science or humanities, and then something happens, some kind of feedback or some kind of relationship with a teacher takes that passion, takes the wind out of the sails. I said I was going to try not to speak, but I have a similar story in the sense that I got into some college classes. And I was passionate about writing. I saw myself as being a writer in the future, which is relevant to, your and Nakosa's story. And you guys have inspired me to get further back into writing. But my dream when I was a child was I wanted to be a writer when I grew up. And I let a teacher really take the wind out of my sail and really take that path away from me. So I thought your story where you were really passionate about playing basketball, but for whatever reason that didn't happen, and you have a specific reason. So let's hear about that.
Right. So technically that's with 2 coaches. So my freshman year I didn't play JV. The coach was Mr. Lewis, and it was like this Jamaican guy. He didn't know anything about basketball. So I just felt like it was a waste of my time. So I pretty much just put all my effort into STEP, and then I played basketball outside of school. So, everybody that was on the basketball team still played basketball with me outside of school. I just wasn't on the team. Then my sophomore year, that was my second year on the STEP team. So now at that point, I was a little more well-known in the school because, like, incoming freshmen already knew me as someone on the STEP team. My class already knew me as someone on the STEP team, and upperclassmen did as well. So I was able to, get in good with all the upperclassmen early. I didn't play basketball in Randolph that year either because, if I'm not mistaken, that year the coach was Mr. Sanchez, which was one of the gym teachers, and me and him just never got along. That year he was actually my gym teacher. And me and him got into it, and I had growing up because I grew up on 181st Street and T-Bout, so a block off of Webster, and it's not too far from the precinct. It wasn't the worst neighborhood, but it's definitely not the best neighborhood at all. So I didn't live with my father, so I had a weird issue and relationship with authority. So it's even though somebody was supposed to be the authority figure outside of my mom, it was you still had to, respect me and earn my respect the same way I had to respect you and earn yours. So even though somebody was, a teacher already, if they talked down to me, I typically, responded with the same energy. But I had a little rule. It's if somebody talks to me, out of line, even if they're an authority figure, I kind of give them 3 strikes. So you kind of get 2 times to talk to me out of line that I feel, and then I'm going to address it. And then if it came down physical, you get 1 time, and then I address it. And that first gym class that I had with Mr. Sanchez, he used all 3 of the talking strikes. So every day, me and him were just always at it. So once he became the varsity coach that year, and Mr. Lewis was still the JV coach, I'm definitely not playing basketball. So that year, I actually had an outside coach that was training me for free with a bunch of other high school players. So I was still, again, actively playing basketball, but I wasn't playing for Randolph. But the step team, everything was great. SBI was great. I went on that was my first college trip. I went on a trip to Gettysburg College, and we like stepped in the show with other fraternities and sororities from a bunch of different schools. So that was great. Like that was my first time like really being on a college campus, seeing what a college classroom looked like, the atmosphere feels like. So at that point, I knew for a fact I was going to college. Granted, I wanted to go to college anyway to play basketball in college. But I knew I was going to college and I was going to go to an engineering college. And I definitely wanted to play basketball because we also went to a basketball game. So seeing how big the arena was compared to high school, had me ready. Junior year.
Tell us a little bit about the Gettysburg College Workshop, because I think that's something that's interesting, and love to hear more about your experience with it.
Well, it was a little different for me because I was a sophomore. So like for me, it was more like I'm in this like weird place that like I'm not ever gonna be able to see again until I graduate high school, in which all the other people on the trip for the most part were seniors, so they were preparing to go to schools like Gettysburg. So like it just opened up my eyes to what college would be like. So sitting in on classes and seeing okay these classrooms are a little smaller than what my high school classrooms are like. Seeing what the instructors are like, and how they already have a lesson on the board. Some of them use PowerPoints, in which my high school, very few classes had a PowerPoint. And just seeing what the campus was like. They had good food in the cafeteria that was better than the Randolph food, so that was good. But I was just soaking it in because again, that was my first time on a college campus. So like it was more so just seeing what the atmosphere was like than actually preparing for it.
Did you take other trips to colleges in your junior or senior year?
Not that I can remember. No.
I think that's something that's interesting about your story.
Right.
I noticed it. Whether it was that I want to go to a school outside of the Bronx in the city,
right?
Because I want to avoid chores at home. You're kind of like, once you experience something, like I've done that, I'm not going to do it again. You're very mathematical in how you approach things. Somebody gets 3 strikes. Like I see this reoccurring theme, and it's just an interesting thing because you definitely have what I would call that engineering mind. Like you're methodical. You want to relax. You want things to be easy. Not that you don't hustle, and not that you're not about your grind, but you're like, I like to relax and be comfortable too. I'm not going to do more than what's necessary, which I think is interesting, and I think probably a lot of people can relate to.
Yeah. So I'm definitely methodical how I plan things before I start doing it. I hate having to learn as I go with stuff. But yeah, so what was it?
So keep going. So let's get through junior and senior year and your march to college. Tell us about that journey.
Right. So junior year, that was my third year on the step team. Again, it was called UB for United Brothers. Anybody that went to Randolph, I'm sure will remember it. And that was my first year as captain. So, that year was great because I pretty much got to put my stamp on the team and, create steps. And I was in the front, in the middle, and all of that stuff. Everybody came in and knew I was the captain of UB. Oddly enough, they used my picture. The company that comes in and does the graduation photos used my picture on the flyer, so that even helped. So it would be times that people would come into the school and already see my face on the flyers posted all around school just for the graduation pictures, and then see me on stage for UB. So it just added to more people knowing my face when I walked around. So I definitely loved junior year. I think that was probably my favorite. Either that or senior year was definitely my favorite shows. Yeah, there goes Lucas running across our backs. I put together that whole thing, but that was definitely, 09 was probably my favorite show, being a part of it. Because that year was only, I think, like 5 of us on stage. So it was like we had to come up with the craziest show possible. So we added the tricks and everything and a bunch of new steps. So everybody loved it. Yeah, I definitely loved junior year. I didn't go on any college trips, but I did play varsity basketball that year. The guy Sanchez was still the coach. And originally, I wasn't even going to play. But I knew pretty much everybody on the basketball team, and they kept telling me, Trevor, come play. And the basketball practices were at the same time as some of the step practices. And I'm like, I'm captain of the team now, so I can't leave to go play basketball. And one day they actually leave their basketball practice when they're supposed to be getting water and come to my step practice and tell me, come try out, come play, come try out, come play. And I ended up coming, and sure enough, the guy, Mr. Sanchez, I guess in the back of his head knew that I was going to eventually come, and left the jersey sitting on the side waiting for me.
That's
And,
such a great story. That is such
right.
a great story.
So I ended up playing junior year. We weren't very good, but I stayed the whole year. Me and Mr. Sanchez got into it, but it was like, he liked the fact that, it's like, he didn't like the fact that I was always giving that toughness back to him, but he loved when I gave it to the rest of the team. So when I blocked the shot and was in somebody's face or getting in somebody's face to play defense and stuff like that, like, he liked that, but he just didn't like that I couldn't turn that, you know, that wildness down when we got back into the huddle, and he was like telling me to box out instead of doing what I was doing. So, but like our relationship got a little better where I stayed on the team for senior year.
Let me talk about that, because I think that's of value to people too.
Mm-hmm.
We were talking about a little bit before this morning. Thinking back on that relationship, and I think it's a testament to your skill and talent, and to a lot of people's skill and talent that, maybe some of the interpersonal skills aren't necessarily there, but the talent, I want to work with this guy, and you see it in the professional world. Like, here's a scientist that has the skill. Mm-hmm. He's not very nice to talk to.
Right.
With people, but
a bunch of engineers like that.
You're right. We're going to still work with him because this guy's a genius, and we need his talents. But I wish he was easier to talk to and easier to get along with, or, brought his concerns in a more constructive way. So looking back on it, obviously we wish that teachers would have been nicer. We wish that, people would have been more engaging. We wish that things were more optimal for our learning experience and our relationship experiences. But looking back on it, like, how do you look back on it now and say, do you think back and say, man, I wish I would have handled those relationships or communicated in a different way? And how do you look at that going backwards, and how do you learn from that and put it into your professional career now?
I mean, so I was definitely able to function with that chip on my shoulder when I was younger, and, not just in basketball, but like even, because I was always one of the top math and science students in every program and every school that I've been in since I was in elementary school. Because my sister, she taught me algebra when I was like 9 years old. So literally every year in elementary school through middle school, I was already, 2 years ahead. So by the first time I really got challenged for math was AP Calculus my senior year of high school. And I ended up, killing that class as well. So, because I was so good at that, it was like, I never felt like I had to do the homework or pay attention in class and stuff like that. So I would go back and forth with some teachers who felt like I was disruptive because I'd be talking. And, sometimes I get a teacher that's just like, if you don't stop talking or if you don't do the homework, you're going to fail this test. And it was like my prerogative to, okay, I'm going to continue doing what I'm doing, and I'm going to make sure I literally get 100 on this test to prove a point. And like, I wish I would have brought that same mindset to basketball. Like, okay, although I don't like this coach and this team isn't very good, I'm going to perform 100% and just do everything I can to get the best out of it. But at the time, I guess I didn't have that mindset for basketball. But I guess my confidence was definitely even higher for math and science for basketball because, for me to come into high school knowing I'm going to be an engineer, like most people didn't have that. So I knew that my math and science skills were high and needed to stay high. So, even junior year when we took I think you take the first essay, your first crack at the SAT your junior year, and then the second crack at it your senior year, at least I did. The first time I took it, I got like a 1590 or something like that when it was out of 2400. But my math section was like a 640. And then the next time I took it, it went up 100 points. But really it was because my reading and my writing both went up 50, but my math stayed at the 640. So it was like, that's just what my math, was. It was very Excel, but like it wasn't, the perfect math score. So I wanted to go to schools like Georgia Tech and and Michigan State and those big tech schools that had D1 programs and stuff. But during my senior year, I realized I was not going to be a D1 athlete because I was getting recruited by D3 and D2 schools, and I didn't have the math to get into Georgia Tech.
What were the requirements for the math at that time?
Say that one more time.
So you were saying you had like a 640, which is pretty high.
Yeah, but it's not Georgia Tech high.
So do you remember what the requirements were at the time for like a school like Georgia Tech?
Well, to get into I could have got in, let's say if I wanted to be like a regular math major or something, but to be an engineering major, because that's like the top engineering school around there, they advised you to have a minimum 680 score on your math for the SAT. Okay. So they said the average student.
Far away.
Right. But that was their minimum. Like most of them would come in above a 680. You know.
Understood. So, yeah, your competition.
Right. And I'm like, I don't know. At that point, I was a little like scared away. But I knew if all the schools that recruited me for basketball, that I could definitely go there and excel for mathematics.
Now I know you were part of Cassie, right? You were part of SAT prep.
Was that the paid program or the free?
Yeah, the paid program.
No, I never did the paid program. I came to one of the free events on the weekend, where they helped with the SAT essay. I mean, not with the SAT essay, but the college application essay. So I had my essay written about pretty much my junior year. I found an organization in Harlem called the Order of the Feather. Again, because Albert Nixon, who was the captain of the step team before me, had joined the year prior, and I didn't know much about the organization. I really just knew them because Albert stepped my junior year, and pretty much on my sophomore year he stepped, so he would have to leave to go to his meetings and stuff like that. And we went to their step show that summer, going into my junior year, and we stepped in it. And we didn't get much love because, it was the step show for the Order of the Feather and not for visitors, and nobody really knew us. And so I was just like, wow, they better be really good for us to not get much love in here. And sure enough, they were like really, really good. So that was like the thing that really captivated me towards them. I think I want to join this organization for this step team.
Yeah, I remember hearing a lot about Order of the Feather, and now thinking back on it, I'm like, and this is, I think, the maturity that time brings, because 10 years ago, I'm hearing all about Order of the Feather. I remember, I'm going to mess up on all the names right now, but, the ladies that were involved with Order of the Feather, the gentlemen that were involved with Order of the Feather, and I'm hearing about it. And instead of being like, wow, I need to get, more information about this organization, meet the people, collaborate. I just remember being like, wow, they're doing Order of the Feather, and I'm like trying to do this stuff over here. And I'm just like, that's what I think, time really makes the difference, because now I would approach it with a whole nother mindset. I'd be like, well, let's find out how we can collaborate and work together. And at the time I was just like, like, hey, we got this thing over here. Like, why are you, why is that taken away? Like, I wasn't understanding that, two different things can be going on, and that can add value and provide more benefits versus take away.
Right.
So anyways, I'm sorry, I'm speaking again, but
no, it was all truth.
Yeah. So let's talk about the walk towards college. Tell us about that journey.
Right. So senior year coming in, once I got that 1690 on the SAT score, pretty much I understood that once I put my race on the college application with that SAT score, it was going to make me look like such a better student, only because I was from, my address says the Bronx, New York, so they could look up the zip code and see what it was. And then, once you put your race, then now they compare you against the rest of your race. They don't compare you against all the other students, which is stuff that, you hear now and again, but it's kind of like college and SAT myths, but like you don't really know until you really go through it. But I understood that ahead of time, in which some other students didn't, which is like, as long as you do much better than the score they expect you to do, you're looked at as a good light, as opposed to if I was like an Asian student, they expect me to get the 1690, so it doesn't look as good. It's unfortunate, but I was able to use it to my advantage. So at that point, my score was like 300 points higher than what they would expect for the average Black student. So I knew applying to predominantly white schools Most of them are looking for, the diversity quotas and stuff like that. So I was going to have the upper hand, just getting into those schools, in which I didn't have the upper hand applying to like the SUNY and CUNY schools, because my mom made too much for me to get in through HEOP. My grades were perfect for HEOP. My GPA, I had like a 80 out of 100. I didn't really try hard with GPAs. I didn't do much participating in homework, so that would lower my grade. But I would always get A's on all the tests, so that would just keep me at an 80. So, it worked out in my favor. But the SAT score, especially the math score, and then my college essay writing about my experience through the Order of the Feather and how much of an asset I'd be, combining that experience with a college experience, helped me get into the schools that I got into. Mr. Thompson, SBI, he told me about St. Michael's College, which I never even visited. He just gave us a list of the schools that he was promoting and reasons why. So I went to collegeboard.com, which I'm assuming students still use now, I would hope. And, the three things I wanted in whatever college I went to, I wanted them to be a Division II basketball program, because I wanted to be able to earn a scholarship. I wanted them to have an electrical engineering program, because my sophomore year is when I decided I was going to go after electrical engineering as opposed to chemical engineering, which was my second choice. And that was because I enjoyed and was better at math over science. And then the third thing was, what was it? Actually, no, I don't even think there was a third thing. I think that it just needed to be like within a certain price range. So I think I told myself, if I can get in, for $20,000, that's perfect. So I applied to basically all the SUNY schools that had engineering programs. I didn't get in because of HEOP. Because I didn't apply to HEOP, I guess it was more competitive, so I wasn't able to get into the schools. I got waitlisted for schools like, University of Buffalo and University of Binghamton, but like I knew other people getting in that had, the same kind of GPA, let's say like an 84, but the SAT score was a 1500. So I knew, okay, if I was an HEOP student, I could have got it easily. So that was frustrating. And but once I found St. Michael's, I got in contact with the coach ahead of time, and he was, I looked at the program, I looked up the NE10 conference that they was in and everything. So I felt like if I went there, I could, try my best, get a relationship with the coach and earn a scholarship. So I did early decision there and enrolled there. So I think in like that summer going into college and that spring, I had schools even reaching out to come for workouts. I played volleyball my senior year, so I had a school even reach out to me to come play volleyball. But I never went to any of the workouts because I already made my decision I was going to go to St. Mike's.
So if you had it to do all over again, would you have gone to more of these schools and checked out what they had to offer?
Yeah, because I didn't end up playing basketball at St. Mike's. And I didn't end up graduating with an engineering degree from St. Mike's. So I definitely would have went. Because the three schools that I spoke to the coaches, there was four schools, but one of them I didn't speak directly to the coach because I didn't want to go. There was Norwich, which is a D3 school, and it's like a old military school, but half the campus isn't a military school. And I was just like, I'm not trying to be on a military campus in Vermont. And they were D3, so he was telling me they could like finagle a financial or academic scholarship due to my SAT score because I'd be an athlete, but I didn't trust it. Then the other three schools that were all D2 were there was a school in South Carolina, like Charleston University or something like that, which was a really good D2 program. The coach was even distinguished. He called me and everything. And I was supposed to go for a workout, but I didn't go. Because I just didn't feel like spending the money to go down there for a workout, and I already decided I'd go to St. Mike's.
So going back and knowing what you know now, would you have gone and spent the money?
Yeah. The other school, probably not. The other school was Western Kentucky or something like that. I believe they're D2, and I spoke to that coach. But I was like, I don't want to go all the way out to Kentucky, and I don't even know. I don't even know how much a plane ride what cost, but I knew I didn't have the money for it.
I have time in Kentucky, but I haven't heard good things.
Right. And the last school was what was it? It was like Washington State University in St. Louis or something like that. And that school was actually a tremendous engineering school. Like that was like a small, tiny version of Georgia Tech. Like you needed
What school was that?
Washington University in St. Louis. Like that was the whole name. So,
so if maybe if you had it over again to do, you might have chosen that school. Were they offering you a financial package?
Yeah, so basically they were a D3 school, but they were like one of the top D3 schools. So the coach was saying the same thing like the other school, that they could finagle what do you call it, an academic scholarship because of my SAT score. Because even though I'm an athlete, they could pressure the school to send money for me academically. And I didn't want to go there. Well, it's a good thing I didn't go there because that's, they had all the Ferguson riots and all that stuff while I was in college. So I would have been in the middle of all of that out in St. Louis. So I'm glad I didn't go there. But yeah, I wasn't too pressed about going to there. The only school that I really think I would have wanted to visit would have been that one in South Carolina, or one of the many community colleges or junior colleges I wanted to go.
And a lot of times, I talk about the story, and I know we talked about this because, I've had some challenging things that I might go into my past and do a little bit differently now if I had it the way. So I bring this stuff up not to talk about anybody's bad choices or you should have done something different, but just, the lessons learned, because I think those are relevant to the audience. So you good news, you got into St. Michael's, you made that choice. Now, we're getting into freshman year at St. Michael's. So I know this is a long journey. Feel free to, ask me a question about what we're interested in. I can help focus you, but walk us through, because I know this is a winding road now, because you started at St. Michael's. And I think the intention, because you were going into an engineering program, was for you to transition, but that didn't exactly work out the way that it was planned. And then you ended up at the University of Akron, and you graduated from the University of Akron. So walk us through that journey. And I definitely would love to hear, the good highlights and the challenging highlights.
All right. So St. Mike's, it was nice. I was there for 3 years. Going in, originally I didn't even think I was going to go there because the financial package wasn't good enough. And I got in contact with Victoria Orner, and she doesn't work there anymore, but she was like a consultant because she was the one talking to Charles Thompson.
I remember Victoria well, yeah.
Yeah, so she introduced me to one of the deans there, Maurice St. Louis, this short Haitian guy, and he was real smart, and he actually had an electrical engineering degree. Like that's how he started getting in academia.
That's amazing.
So he liked the fact that I was going for electrical engineering. I was a black student, good SAT score, and when I told her I wasn't going to go because of the financial package, he told her to have me write an appeal letter, and he actually edited the appeal letter to help me get the better package. So once they edited the package, originally I think St. Michael's was supposed to cost like $42,000 a year with everything included, and the package they were giving me was like for $10,000 or $15,000. So I was still on the hook for like 20-something thousand. I was like, my budget is $20,000. In all actuality, I don't know why my budget was even $20,000, because I didn't have $20,000 to spend. But I felt like that was a normal thing to take out $20,000 in loans for you. So the next package they gave me after the appeal letter,
and when I'm sorry, when you say 20,000, you mean per year or for the whole year?
Yeah. Like I was just under the assumption that $20,000 a year for college was like the going rate. So that's what I was expecting to have to take out.
Do you remember what Thompson was telling you was like an acceptable amount per year?
I don't, but I knew because my mom made as much money as she did, most colleges were not going to give me a very good financial package based on that.
So I don't know if he's changed it, but just so people that are watching this sort of hear, I think what we were recommending was no more than $6,000-7,000 per year.
Right. Now, if I had took that advice and stuck to it, I'd have ended up at one of those community colleges playing basketball, which, again, probably would have been the choice I went. But, everything worked out, for a reason. But for some reason, I just assumed 20,000 was just the going rate. Like, so there was even a guy who worked at Randolph. His name was Alex. He was like one of the deans, and he worked in the lunchroom. And he told me when I was telling him I didn't want to go to that college because of, all these other things. And we had a good relationship. So he used to ask me about what college I was going to and all that stuff. And I told him I wasn't going to go there anymore because of the financial package. And that was after the appeal letter still. Because after the appeal letter, I think they were giving me like $30,000. So I was still on the hook for like $14,000 or something like that. And or $12,000. And he was saying that the girl he was dating at the time was finishing up medical school at Columbia. He's like, my girl's about to be almost $200,000 in debt. And she's going to have a good job and she's going to be able to pay that off over time. He was like, you're going to school for engineering. You'll be able to pay off $20,000 a year. And like, that was like a little bump that he gave me. I remember I told Thompson that I didn't tell Thompson, the exact prices and everything. So I, me and him never talked about how much money I should be spending because I was kind of independent with my, how I looked at colleges.
Yeah, I don't think that helped you.
yeah, at all. But I remember when I told him I was considering just waiting on the wait list for like University of Buffalo and stuff like that. He was like, "Are you kidding me?" He was like, "You telling me so for the same price to go to St. Michael's College, which was like $12,000, you could go. The other option is University of Buffalo, and you're going to choose University of Buffalo?" And I was like, "Okay, clearly this must be the wrong choice too." So eventually I chose St. Mike's because it had everything I wanted. And I was like, I'm going to be spending thousands of dollars anyway. It looked like that $12,000 number was going to be, what I was going to have to pay whether I went to a SUNY school or not. So, I went with St. Mike's. The thing with that changed was every year the tuition would go up, but my package would stay the same. So technically the first year, let's say I owed $12,000. The next year it was $14,000. Then the following year it was $16,000. So that I wasn't aware of until it happened. But my freshman year at St. Mike's was cool. I didn't end up playing basketball. I tried out for the team, and one dude I'm actually real cool with now, his name is Q. He was on the team, and I don't know why they matched me up with him because I was a power forward. I'm 6'5". Q was a point guard, and honestly I think they just matched me up because me and him were black. And he killed me because I was guarding him at the 3-point line. He's like blowing past me and all that stuff. And, I didn't get the chance to post him up because they had me, not playing where I naturally play. So I didn't make the team. So I was just there for engineering and to meet new people. So, that's what I did. I know the guy, Maurice St. Louis, he had the dean that helped with my appeal letter. He had a program, the Diversity and Inclusion Program or something like that. Where basically before the school year starts, a lot of the participants of that program who are not just students of color, but also some white students as well, they meet. He has a house in Vermont with like a lot of land, so they have like a potluck at his house and all that other stuff. So, and basically he does that. So because it's only like 2,400, 2,500 students that went to St. Mike's. When I went there, we were the most diverse class in St. Mike's history, and I knew every black kid on campus. There were 25 of us, so we were literally it was 1% of the campus.
That's crazy. The most diverse class in history.
Yeah, we were the most diverse class in St. Mike's history. He pretty much did that because he knew a lot of black kids struggle, especially if they came from in the city, to interact with a lot of the white kids, from New England. So I didn't go to that program because I didn't have the money to just go to Vermont for a weekend. And, I didn't want to take that 12-hour train ride again and all that stuff. So I figured, if I'm going to meet people, it'll be genuine. I'll meet them when I get there. And I'm not cool with every black person I know anyway. So it's not like they're just going to like me because I'm black. And so in the beginning, it was a little awkward because so many of the minority students all knew each other, and the only minority student I knew was my friend from Randolph, who was Mitchell, who went to St. Mike's. He lived in the room right below mine.
I meant to ask about Mitchell. So,
yeah,
still in touch with Mitchell?
I haven't spoken to Mitchell in a while, but the last I saw on Facebook, he's I think he's in the Army or in the Marines or something.
Okay, yeah, I definitely want to follow up with him. I was posting up APRCHS video and linking people in, and there's so many alumni that
Right.
I'm connected to, and I know he went to St. Mike's, and I knew that you guys were friends at one point. So yeah, definitely interested in that story. I think it's interesting you went to St. Mike's particularly because of the basketball, and like almost immediately that isn't on the table, and now you're telling me
Right.
you had the opportunity to kind of take advantage of a program where you would have kind of gelled in a little bit. And I wonder if that didn't play into the basketball thing a little bit as well. Maybe, you know,
And it was a new coach. So the coach that I was emailing before I got there, they fired him and brought in a new coach over that summer.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
All right, so this is how the St. Michael's story is beginning, and I know it gets a little bit more challenging.
Right.
What are some of the good things before we get into some of the challenging things that you went through? What are some of the positives that you got from St. Michael's while you were there?
Well, you know, even though I didn't go to that diversity, you know, meeting or whatever before I got there, you know, eventually, you know, I started meeting, you know, I had to become cool with the people on my floor just because they're on my floor. So what I did was I would just leave my door open and play my music. So most of the people in the hall would hear it. So when they walked by, they would always come in and like bow their head and introduce themselves.
All right, just for reference, what tracks were you playing?
I played all of my kind of music. So sometimes it was dancehall, like Bob's Cartel. Sometimes it was Biggie. Sometimes it was Nas. You know, definitely not what they were playing in their rooms most of them.
Yeah, so
But
that's
like
definite '90s throwbacks that I can get with. Very nice.
right, yeah, for sure. You know, because even if I played like Lil Wayne at the time, he was popular, so like they were familiar with him. They knew the songs. Even some of the girls would come in and like know some of the songs and start rapping. That's how I made my name for myself. They would come in, say what's up because they liked the song, and then now I had a friend, you know, in case something happened, just like my sister told me. So, how I ended up finally meeting some of the minority students, because like at some point I could feel like it was a little, I don't want to say animosity, but like a little awkwardness, especially with some of the female minority students, because it was like I could tell they looked at me like I was the black guy who looked like he didn't want to interact with the other black students. But it was just, I didn't know him. And I was like, I figured I'd meet him at some other point. So once I went to every weekend to go play basketball, eventually I started meeting all the black students there, all the guys. So I was cool with all of them. So me getting cool with all the black upperclassmen that were males, eventually, you know, hanging around with them, the female minority students all met me, and then that's how I became cool with all of them. So it was like a smooth transition and everything. You know, my freshman year, I wasn't prepared for the I don't want to say the work difficulty, but the workload. So again, I was so used to not having to do the work, just going to class, understanding what they taught in class, and then getting an A on the test, and that's how I got a B and everything. But when I got to college, it's like what you learned in class is just a precursor to what you're going to read in the book. So that was the big difference I took away between high school and colleges. In high school, they're teaching you in class new material, and you're going home to review it. In college, they're introducing you to new material, and you're supposed to go home and learn it from the book. And then when you come back to the next class, they're essentially reviewing what you were supposed to read after the last class. So for me not doing the reading, I pretty much struggled in every class that wasn't math and science. So even the chemistry class I took my freshman year, I got like a C- in it, and I worked so hard for that C-. I was doing extra credit. I was in office hours just to get that C-. I remember I had the idea because my senior year I took an AP calculus class, so I already had college credits for calculus. I figured I was just gonna go to college, take calculus 1 again, and get an A to keep my GPA high as soon as I got in. But the lady that was my advisor was best friends with the guy that was in charge of the math department. So when she found out I passed the AP exam, she went straight to him, and they put me directly into calculus 2. So you know, my freshman year, I had class calculus 2 Monday through Friday at 8 a.m. So it was like I was right back on that difficult high school kind of schedule, even though I was in college preparing for it to be more lax. So I wasn't ready for it to be that intense right away. So I definitely struggled. But, you know, I passed. So, you know, I had my C's and my C pluses, you know, holding me up. My sophomore year, it was kind of the same thing. I started taking classes at University of Vermont. So St. Mike's engineering program is a 3-2 program. So your first 3 years, you're at St. Mike's taking liberal arts classes, and the last 2 years, you're at University of Vermont taking all engineering classes. And at the end, you get an engineering degree from University of Vermont and a liberal arts degree from St. Mike's. When I was there, I started taking my first engineering class at University of Vermont, my second semester of my freshman year. So fast forward to my junior year, by the time I was supposed to transfer out, I already had a bunch of credits for University of Vermont because I've been taking classes there for the first 3 years. So my sophomore year at St. Mike's was cool. I didn't try out for the basketball team because the new coach he recruited in like 5 new players, so I knew there was no way I was gonna like take anybody's spot or something. I was just cool with a lot of people on the basketball team, more well-known on campus. It was kind of just like high school again. You know, it's just no step team. I'm just the guy known on campus, you know, Trevor, and I'm black, and I'm not hard to remember. And yeah, so that was sophomore year for me. So I definitely enjoyed sophomore year. Junior year, I actually tried out for the basketball team junior year. I feel like I should have made it. I definitely showed out in the workouts. I didn't do as well in the open run, but before tryouts, because that summer I lost a lot of weight. I was working out with my friend Hassan, who also with the Randolph. He's a personal trainer. I lost like 15 pounds that summer. I was in the best shape of my life. I was dunking real easy. So when I tried out, before tryouts, you know, I went to the NCAA meeting with the team. A bunch of the guys on the team knew me, so the chemistry was good. The assistant coaches remembered me, so they was able to see, you know, how different my body and my game was. I used to go to the open run with the team all the time and play, so they had already seen me, you know, block shots, dunk, get crossed up, you know, rebound, all the different, you know, the good and the bad. So I didn't, when I went to tryouts, I just figured all I got to do is make sure I kill these drills and I'm good. So the open run, I didn't play well at all. So there were 14 people on the team. There was like 6 of us trying out for the last spot. And the coach ended up not even giving anybody the last spot. He just left the last spot open and used it to recruit new players and like some weird scheme he was doing. Like, let's say he only had 13 scholarships he was able to use. He would make it seem like he had an extra scholarship on the table. So he'd recruit 3 players, even though there's only 2 spots open, give one a scholarship, tell the other guy he has to come with no scholarship because somebody else took it, and then the last guy would have to come with no scholarship at all and like kind of walk onto the team. He wouldn't even have a certified spot. So he basically left that open spot so he had that option to do that with.
Created competition, but not in a very transparent way.
At all, exactly. So
let me just throw a picture of Hassan up on the screen here for everybody to see.
Yeah. Let's see what picture you about to use. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's Hassan.
I just found one. I don't know if it's the one that he would like to see, but you can see, man, this guy's legs and
right.
Yeah.
He actually trains me and my wife virtually now. So sometimes my daughter will come in and work out with us too.
So hopefully he'll be one of these interviews that we have down the line.
For sure. I'll be telling him today.
Great, excellent. So let's get into this. So I do want to try to, because I know this story takes a hard turn. I know you had difficulties with the basketball team. That wasn't negative. Tell me all the positive things that happened at St. Michael's before we get into the real craziness. My positive
stuff was really from the people. I enjoyed the people at St. Mike's more than the actual like institution. I didn't like how St. Mike's ran its school. I didn't like where they spent their money. I felt like they could spend more money on athletics and atmosphere on campus than, you know, they had like some like purple shed thing that they were using for some weird stuff. It was dumb. But the people at St. Mike's, I was really cool with. You know, again, some other students, especially students of color, had difficulty transitioning, you know, with culture shock and stuff. But my mom used to send me to summer camp, sleepaway camp, you know, upstate every summer from when I was the age 7 to 14. So I was already used to, you know, interacting with a lot of white people every summer. So when I got to college, you know, I kind of already knew what to expect. I transitioned, you know, flawlessly. So I enjoyed my time. You know, my roommate from my freshman year, he was my roommate all 3 years. My junior year, we had a suite, so there were 8 of us in there. You know, we threw parties and all this other stuff. And, you know.
It's so interesting hearing your story because while there's a lot of similarities, your story is so different from most of us.
It's so different. I loved my time there.
your ability to sort of handle the environment and, you know, where she was struggling, you're not.
Right.
Where you were struggling, she wasn't.
Right.
You know, like, you know, she did a straight shot in 4 years and actually graduated before you, after leaving Randolph 1 year later than you.
Right.
It's just crazy. So let's get into that hard turn. So this is where the story sort of gets a little crazy. So you're at St. Michael's on the 3-2 piece. You're supposed to do 3 years at St. Michael's. And so now you're in junior year at St. Michael's, right?
Right. So the beginning of my 3rd year, they bring in all the junior level engineering students. And by that time, a lot of students had already given up on engineering just because the material was hard. And I mean, I guess I liked it because I had the chip on my shoulder. As like the harder the engineering program got, because every semester you got more difficult classes, seeing more and more other people drop out, it made some other people nervous, but it like made me hype because I'm like, okay, so that means I can do this better than all of these other students that I thought were really my competition, but they can't even take the work. So by junior year, I think there was only like 8 of us left that were engineering. And not that there was a lot of us, but I think it started off like 20. So most of the students switched to another degree. And then for electrical engineering, there was only 2 of us, me and then my friend Megan Leon. So we were the only 2 electrical engineering majors. They bring all the 8 of us into a room, and they have people from the engineering department at University of Vermont there pretty much giving us all the bad news that they never told us, which was University of Vermont is a public school, and like because it's a different school, we wouldn't be paying St. Mike's tuition, and our financial aid package from St. Mike's doesn't affect University of Vermont. So they were like, after this 3rd year, your last 2 years at University of Vermont, you'll be paying University of Vermont tuition, which was $50,000, which was more than St. Mike's. And I was just like, what? And all of us are just sitting in the room dumbfounded, like, what is going on here? Like, we're thinking we're going to have the same package and everything. Then they're like, yeah, and because we're a public school, you know, our financial aid is run federally or through the state or whoever. So, you know, it's not like they have you know, you can write an appeal letter, but it's not like my appeal letter is getting into the hands of the dean that I can contact who can talk to somebody to get money directly to me. So they couldn't disperse their package, you know, with the same, you know, freeness that, you know, St. Mike's could for me. And I already knew because of the HEOP situation, my mom made too much for me to get much in financial aid, especially because that was a lot based on New York income. Vermont income is even lower than the average income in New York City. So, you know, she was seeing even higher. Then what else they said? So we were trying to figure out, okay, could we get the in-state tuition instead of out-of-state tuition? Since technically we were living at St. Mike's for the last 3 years, and they tell us no. Their rule is you need to have been living in Vermont for at least 1 year, someplace that was not on a college campus or like.
Which would have been helpful information to you 2 years ago, right?
Right. Because if that was the case, I could have moved off campus or something and used.
Right. They want you to live in Vermont, which means you couldn't live on campus.
Right.
So they wanted you to be in off-campus housing to be official.
But you needed it for at least a year. So even if you did it the next day, it's still not enough time.
So they're telling you way too late for you to actually do anything about it.
Exactly.
Which I'm sure for you is like you want to throw something at a wall on the kind side and maybe at the person on the not so kind side.
So nobody left that meeting in a good mood. So we're all just like, what the hell are we gonna do? So it's other people literally talking about, I think I'm gonna switch my major because I don't want to pay $50,000. Me, I'm just like, I done put in way too much work and way too many hard nights. I've been saying I'm gonna be an engineer since 8th grade, so I'm not switching. And so, you know, junior year happens. You know, I had a great time junior year. That's when we had the suite, so we had the parties and everything. Like, It was my third year there. I almost made the team, but I didn't. So that my sophomore year, not playing, I didn't go to many basketball games. I went to a few. My junior year, I went to all the basketball games because I knew all the people in the team. So I used to be in the crowd talking trash to the other team at the bench. Like anybody that went there my junior year would tell you, like I was the person to see at the games. Like sometimes
you were like the 6'5" Spike Lee.
Right. And it's like you have the two hoops. We knew at the second half our team always scored on this hoop, meaning the other team had to play defense. So we always sat right behind this hoop. So if the other, we knew the other team shot on this side. So we sat behind that hoop for the second half. So when they shooting free throws, I got my roommate like sticking up his shirt, wagging out his stomach, like. And the basketball games used to be absolutely dead. Like it'd be 100 people in there, but the arena is supposed to sit 2,500 people. Next thing you know, by the middle of the season, that area right behind that basket was packed. And then on the other side, there was this white kid, Kenny. Him and all his crazy roommates, they were seniors. They used to like all get drunk and go to the other side and like go bananas on the other side while the other team was out there because I started doing it on this side. So it started bringing more attention to the games. People started going and stuff. So I loved my sophomore and my junior year. And then, we get that information in the beginning of the year. You forget about it. You go through with the year. I struggled a little bit, but, I passed everything. And then, you got to do the common application because the process to go to the second half of the program, it's just like a regular transfer student. You're just transferring in the University of Vermont. So because I have all of these credits, I already have, a GPA there and everything. I know professors and stuff. I took labs or everything. I took circuits and a bunch of my intro stuff to electrical engineering was all at University of Vermont. And next thing you know, on July, I think it was around July 4th time. I don't remember if it was a few days before, a few days after. I get a letter in the mail basically from University of Vermont saying that they've had more applicants for the engineering program than they initially expected and more transfer students than they initially expected. So there was more competition for my seat. And because of that, there were more qualified candidates and I was put on a wait list. And I'm like, what the hell? And I'm like, I thought this was an easy pipeline. It didn't tell us nothing about how we could be waitlisted or anything. And it's not like my GPA was very high. It was like probably like a 2 point. I know it wasn't a 2.5. So I used to always teeter between 2.7 and 2.2. And at one point, I think when I transferred, it was like a 2.4 or something like that. And, but I never failed the class and I had the grades there. So I was confident. And they're just like, yeah, you got waitlisted. So I'm like, what the hell am I supposed to do now? So I'm calling and emailing people at University of Vermont, the people in charge of the 3-2 program at St. Mike's trying to figure it out. And at one point, the last recommendation I got from somebody at University of Vermont was maybe until I get an answer, I should enroll to go back to St. Mike's for a year and retake the classes retake classes that I got like C's in and try and get an A. That way I could raise my GPA because that would be better than taking a new class and getting an A.
And let me to reiterate what you're saying so that folks can understand this, because when I hear it, and I'm assuming when you heard it as well, if somebody's telling you there's a 3-2 program, you're accepting that this is a program, you go here for 3 years, you're going to go there for 2 years, and they're telling you the rules up front. And it sounds like maybe there was a rule book, but they were sort of changing some of the rules midway. I mean, was this all stuff that they disclosed to you in the beginning? Was this open information? Was it in the fine print? Or was this stuff that just there really wasn't a way to know this stuff ahead of time?
I mean, really, there was no way to know it. I mean, obviously, you assume that you should have the best GPA possible. So that was where I have to take the bulk of the responsibility. Like, if I had a 3.0, I highly doubt I get waitlisted. Well, but they didn't tell us that there was a minimum or anything like that.
Right. I think that's sort of the point.
Right.
Yeah. Going back, in your story, like even applying to college, right? So I think early on you're like, hey, this is the system. I understand what my grades are going to look like if I'm a black student versus a white student. You're working within the system that's given, for better or for worse, right? You're working within the system that is there and provided for you. You know, argue about the system not being right, you know, change the system. I compare it to like Donald Trump, you know, winning the Electoral College, right? You can be mad at Donald Trump or you can be mad at the system, but at the end of the day, he won and it was within the rules. So what are you going to do, right? And to that, you know, I think it's so important for somebody going into a college program to speak to people that are in these programs, because it's one thing what they put on paper.
Right.
And it's a whole nother thing, the actual experience of it. So if there's a lesson to be learned from the trials and tribulations that you're going through, it's like, listen, talk to people in that program. If there's a 3-2 program, find the people that are in the 2.
Right. Exactly.
Find people that are actually there doing it and find out how they experience that program and what they suggest and what kind of grade point average they had to keep up, because I guarantee you, based on your experience, that you're not the only person that ran into it.
Right. Yeah. But I think when I came in, there were only 2 people that were at University of Vermont finishing up the engineering program.
But did you talk to them? And I'm not saying you did anything.
No. So there was one girl. Her name was Daisy, if I'm not mistaken. At the end, if I'm not mistaken, she ended up switching her degree to math. And then there was another guy who I never even met, but I heard of. They said he was on the hockey team. So that's part of the reason why I never met him. But I don't know who that guy is. But outside of that, it was just those 2. Before that, you know, after them, it was my class. So there was nobody in the class above us, or the grade right above us or whatever, that was finishing that program.
And it's interesting you saying that, because immediately, based on my experience, if you say there's only 2 people in that program, I'm immediately worried. I am super worried right away, because the numbers and the statistics in higher education, 2 is not good. You know, that's like saying this is the most diverse class in St. Michael's history, and coming in and seeing 25. How many students are there at St. Michael's in total?
At the time, it was like 2,400.
2,400 students, most diverse class in the history of St. Michael's. 25. You know, so I think that's, you know, that's the lesson for somebody that's going through the process right now. They're a junior in high school, they're a senior, and they're picking their college right now. I want them to hear that, because that makes all the difference. That's the difference between the brochure and the real experience of the college. And I'm so thankful that I'm hearing your experience, because, you know, if I'm talking to somebody, well, hey, why don't you go to St. Michael's? Oh, I want to be an engineer. Oh, let me look it up and see. That's the details that you really need to understand. Not that they have the program, but how many people are successful in the program. Sorry to keep talking and taking away, but I think that's something that will really bring value to folks that are listening to your story. So
that's definitely something they need to know, because remember, I went in with that chip on my shoulder, like, well, I can do anything against the grain. So I'm like, oh, only 2 people in this program, so I'll be number 3, like whatever, it's no big deal. And then, you know, stuff didn't work out. So I ended up getting that letter saying that I got waitlisted, and then the lady, you know, whatever lady that was at University of Vermont that I spoke to from the admissions office, telling me I should go back and retake classes to raise my GPA. I'm just like, that's not happening. I'm not about to spend $14,000. At the time, it would have been $18, because it seemed like every year St. Mike's tuition was going up around $2,000.
Right.
So at that point, I'm like, I'm about to take out $18,000 to retake a bunch of classes. Like, at this point, like there's no positive to this. So you know, I went through like 2 days of just being upset, telling them, you know, I told my roommates I wasn't going to come back. So at the time, we had a townhouse on campus. I told them, you know, move in one of my other friends who needed that room and everything, you know, just so it wasn't an open room and they weren't, you know, unaware of what was going on. You know, and then I told my mom, and then I went online, and first thing I did was go to College Board, because since they waited until July to tell me that, you know, my first instinct is I'm going to apply to a SUNY school and finish up, you know, at Binghamton or wherever else. And I realized that because it's July, the SUNY and CUNY applications are all closed. And I would have had to wait until the following year to apply. So I'm not about to sit around in New York City for a year, and I only got, you know, 1 or 2 years left for an engineering degree. So I went on collegeboard.com again, and I just started. The 3 things I put in were they need, you know, basketball was off the table at this point, so they needed to have an electrical engineering program that I felt was better than University of Vermont. Because one thing I realized again, how, you know, what the material that universities teach, or like what they encourage behind it, and for my instance, I'm talking specifically to the engineering department, has a lot to do with where they are. So with Vermont, they're all about clean energy and you know, everything being clean, not you know, gas, what is it, natural gases and all that other stuff. So it seemed like all the senior engineering projects were some sort of solar thing, or you know, they're using wind turbines to create energy, and everything was about clean energy. But you know, me being from New York, clean energy is not a priority in New York City. So when I transferred, you know, I was like, I'm gonna make sure I'm not looking for schools that are in these kind of cities where they're gonna be teaching me clean energy stuff, because I plan on coming back to New York City to find a job, and I need to make sure they're teaching me something I can use. So I looked for top engineering.
Just for some contextual reference, what are the technologies that you were thinking New York was focused on at that time?
Well, so all of my engineering internship experience was using AutoCAD, which is a design software for engineers.
I'm glad you brought that up. I'd like
Right.
to break the internships up into the story, because I think that's a huge part of your story.
Right.
That, you know, Samites, for better, for worse, you know, some good experiences, some horrible experiences, but you had some terrific internships with your summers off from college.
Right. So I learned AutoCAD in Randolph actually my sophomore year, because I was in the engineering program. And they actually only had that class. They stopped giving that class after my sophomore year. So because it was an engineering,
Yeah, let's hit them in the head with that.
Right.
High
Right.
school students need more opportunities
Yeah.
like that. Hello.
I'll tell you, well, as the story goes on, you'll realize having that AutoCAD class when I was in 10th grade, like, kind of got me where I am today, because I took that AutoCAD class really seriously. Even though I wasn't a fan of the teacher, again, it was just, I want to learn this material so bad, I'm going to make sure I know it all. So when it was time to, you know, do the designs in AutoCAD, I knew it all. I knew how to create a 2D diagram very efficiently in there. Eventually, I was one of the first students that learned how to extrude and make it 3D and put the top side, the top, front, and side view, and then the isometric view at an angle so you can see the 3D. Like, I was one of the first students that was really getting it very well. So that worked out for me, because after my sophomore year in college, after my freshman year in college, I reached out to the Order of the Feather and the Phoenix sorority. That's the sorority where you saw the women that were affiliated with the Feather. It's the Phoenix sorority. I reached out to see if anybody had any connections to people who were engineers, or specifically electrical engineers, for internships. And there was one woman, Stephanie Amo, who is a Phoenix sorority sister. She basically gave me the internship. Like, she was working at STV Incorporated downtown near Union Square on Park Avenue. And she spoke to her manager, her supervisor. I was the first intern that they even had in the electrical engineering department, because it's a big company, but they primarily work in building design. So their electrical engineering department is pretty small. It was probably only like 20 electrical engineers, but they had, you know, probably like 80 architects. And with me being there, I learned a lot. You know, I used to spend a lot of time, you know, not doing much, because they didn't have much work for me. They didn't realize how good at AutoCAD I actually was. So when they would give me, you know, notes to edit, or like lines to purge or get rid of, and drawings, you know, they're thinking I'm going to be working on that for 2 hours, and I'd finish it in 20, 30 minutes and be there, you know, reading a book. So I basically call her my mentor, Stephanie Amo. She gave me a book about wires and gauges and the different type of cables you have to use and design for electrical, because there's different wires gauged for high temperature, for wet conditions, stuff that's going to be for hot and wet conditions, for like humid conditions, some for high voltage, low voltage, all sorts of stuff. Some that's going to have a lot of noise and waves around it. So I was reading that book, and there was this old Chinese man that was working there. I don't remember his name, but he walks up to me, and his English wasn't very good. I was there for probably like 2 weeks, and he says, "What are you doing? You're wasting your time." And I was like, "What are you talking? No, this book is about electrical engineering." He goes, "No." He was like, "You read that book, you don't get the job. You see the drawings on your desk, you learn the drawings, you get the job. Just study the drawings." So I took his advice. I put the book down, started studying the drawings, and sure enough, a few years later, my first year at University of Akron, which is what I ended up transferring to, I got an internship with Disney ABC as an AutoCAD engineer, AutoCAD intern, and doing everything AutoCAD, editing drawings all day long, all because of that experience that I had there. But yeah, when it was time to transfer, I basically narrowed it down to schools that had top engineering programs that were in industrial kind of environments, schools that were within 8 hours, because St. Mike's was an 8-hour drive. So I'm like, in case it's a drive, I don't want to have it to be even further than where I was used to with St. Mike's. And they needed to have an open application at the time because it was already July. And I narrowed it down to University of Akron in Ohio and University of West Virginia. And then I remember one time in Vermont, we were joking around. I was like, I think Vermont's probably like the least diverse state in the country. And we ended up looking it up, and it was West Virginia. And I remembered that stat. And I was like, I'm not going to University of West Virginia. So that's how I ended up at University of Akron. And I didn't go for a visit or anything. I spoke to my advisor on online, like a conference like this. She told me about the school, gave me like a...
Now, I know where the story is going. Do you
Right.
think a visit might have changed your mind, or at that point, the options were limited?
Yeah, the options were limited. So, the same way with St. Mike's, by the time I took my first visit to St. Mike's, I already applied and got in. So I knew I was going. So same thing with Akron. By the time I took my visit, it was just so I knew when it was time to move in where I was going. So my mentor through the feathers, his name is Courtney Bennett. His sister worked out there. So I stayed with her for like
basically, the long story short here is you end up at University of Akron.
Mm-hmm.
Engineering is incredibly challenging.
Right.
You get into a point where now
it's my priority, number one and only priority.
Well, you get to a point where your grade point average, the classes, you're not doing well in the classes. And
right.
To a point where now there's an emergency because they're about to tell you the worst news possible after you've already moved from St. Michael's to University of Akron. They're telling you now you have to go back and repeat classes. And now, so now you're like panicking because your college education has already been extended beyond what you thought it was going to be. It's taken this wild turn where you've gone from Vermont to Ohio, where you never thought you were going to end up when you started your college career. And now, yet again, they're throwing a curveball because you're in this engineering program and you've worked so hard to get there. They've disallowed credits just for you. You had credits that you built up at University of Vermont and St. Michael's, part of your 3-2 program that didn't work out. You're now at University of Akron. You're now in crisis mode because now you've put time in there and they're telling you you can't finish this program. So you're going to, I forget the lady's name that you mentioned, but you head to this office to try to figure this out. And what does she tell you?
Right. So just to clear up that story. So when I got to University of Akron, because I was a transfer student, they put me as a pre-engineering student because they were saying you needed like a 2.5 or a 2.7 yeah, I think like 2.75 or something like that to technically get into the engineering program. So I was a pre-engineering student. But by the time I got there, all of my classes were junior level courses. So none were very easy. So again, I was doing pretty much the same kind of work, 2.5 level for the next 2 years. But my second year there, I was taking junior and senior level courses. So I failed one class, which was a computer programming class. I made that up over the summer at CCNY. But again, 2.5 level GPA. So what I thought was going to be my last year there was my third year. I signed up for all senior level courses because I already passed some the year prior. It was probably like a week into classes. I come back from class and I get an email stating that I was technically still a pre-engineering student. My GPA wasn't high enough to get into the actual School of Engineering because it was only a 2.5. And you can't take senior level courses until you are in the engineering program, which was weird to me because I already passed senior level courses the year prior. So at that point, I was completely like in panic. I had no idea what I was gonna do. My roommate sees me. He sees how stressed I am. So he sits with me and we're trying to figure out what I'm gonna do. And one thing I remembered from when I was in high school is when I was applying to engineering programs, there was schools, the good engineering schools had engineering programs and then engineering tech programs. And I wasn't really understanding what the difference was at the time. I just knew I was going to get an electrical engineering program because that's what I needed for design. Electrical engineering tech or any engineering tech is pretty much, you learn the same material, but like your labs and stuff like that are less theory based and more hands-on and logic based. So instead of me doing a lab where, I'm keeping record of how much voltage is in the battery as it's being used in different electronics and seeing which one pulls how much wattage and stuff like that. This for the electrical engineering tech program, they had me I was doing like PLC design, which is like logic design for like those big factory belts that, let's say like where, Coca-Cola, where they pour and cap the bottles, it's a big factory and it just keeps pushing. They taught us how to program those. And then they had like a makeshift one that we would upload the program into and do it by hand and everything.
Which is amazing. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, it was a tremendous engineering program. So I pretty much, once I get that information, I look up electrical engineering tech, I look up what the requirements are for it, and I see pretty much all the classes there I already took, other than a few of the senior level classes. So I contact the lady, I don't remember her name, but she was the head of the engineering tech admissions for University of Akron. I email her, she emails me back saying she's gonna leave her office in an hour. So if I can make it there in an hour, I can come. I get my bag, my transcript, and I run to her office. And like I was one of the few people with no car in Ohio, so I walked the whole city. I walked it all over the place. I sprint to this lady's office. I introduced myself.
You get there in a sweat, panic.
Right. I tell her who I am. She wasn't even expecting it to be this giant guy, so she's asking me about basketball, and I'm just like, lady, you have no idea what's going on. So I tell her everything about how I, because she's never heard about me before, so she needed me to tell her how I got to even Akron from St. Mike's, then what was going on at Akron and the position I'm in now. So as I'm talking, she realizes how crazy the story is. She calls whoever she was supposed to meet after and tells them give her an extra hour because she needs to meet with me. I already knew my transcript basically by mind. I didn't know every class, but I knew how many credits I had for each section. So for humanities, science, math, and everything. And I told her, she was able to pull up my record with all my transcript, and she does some calculating, and she looks at me and she says, "Well, it looks like for you, if you transfer to the electrical engineering tech program, you can graduate this year." And I'm like, "What? How is that so?" And basically, when I transferred in, the electrical engineering department only took 86 out of the 100 credits I already had from St. Mike's and University of Vermont. Had I transferred to electrical engineering tech, they would have taken all 100, and they would have taken the one, and they took the ones that I took while I was at Akron. So when I was there, I only needed like 14 more credits to take. So I was a part-time student for the rest of the year, and that senior year was real easy for me. So I took the rest of the time, to myself, learning stuff outside of the classroom, doing, Black history research and a bunch of different stuff that I wasn't learning in engineering classes. business
Amazing.
research, investment research, everything.
That's amazing. And I think it's really interesting as we get towards graduation here. You get your degree from University of Akron, but I love the story that, you know, you could have maybe had a faster or speedier journey towards graduation, but you didn't know all your options.
Right.
I think that it's interesting in your engineering career that you have now. Obviously, you work for an employer, but you're working on building your own company, contracting firm, and understanding that there's money to be found, and understanding all of the different options that are available to you in the world, and all the different ways that you can take advantage of opportunity programs that are in New York and beyond. So I love that piece of your story and the lesson to be learned there.
Right. So, you know, I graduate with that year, 2016 in May, with my electrical engineering tech degree. And, you know, when I graduated, I had $400 left in my bank account when I get back to New York. And, you know, I do the math, and I'm like, okay, I got enough money to last me for 30 days. And I was like, if I can budget this, so I don't go out any day but the weekend, and you know, I only spend like $20 a day. I can last for 1 month. So I told myself, because I used to, the summers beforehand, when I didn't have a internship, I would lifeguard, because I got my lifeguard. You had to take a gym class or a physical education class at University of Akron. And the one I took, you know, because you could take like bowling and pool and basketball and stuff like that. I took lifeguarding because I already knew how to swim from going to summer camp all those years. And the thing was that when you pass the lifeguard class, you're able to take the test to become a certified Red Cross lifeguard. So I did that because I was like, if I can't find an internship when I go home, I know I can get a job as a lifeguard during the summer, which I did. So when I came back during the winters, I was a lifeguard. When I came back during the summers, I was a lifeguard. Even when I had the internship with Disney ABC, I worked there Monday through Friday, and then Saturday and Sunday I lifeguard all day. So I made a lot of money that summer. And that's one thing. So when it comes to college, you know, I was going to say this later, but I always encourage STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, and math. Engineering more than anything, because that's what I know the most of, because I've heard a lot of college students talking about getting internships and thinking that they have to be paid very little, you know, or a stipend or be unpaid at all. And I've never seen an unpaid engineering internship.
That's interesting. That's really interesting.
Especially for New York City. I mean, maybe in other cities where, you know, construction and stuff or engineering isn't as big, but like if you live in New York City, there is so much money in engineering because there is so much money in construction. Like, construction is one of the industries that is 24/7 in the city. It's even essential right now during coronavirus. Like, so like if there's a way that you think you would pursue engineering and you're plan on working in New York City, civil, mechanical, and electrical engineering, it would be the way to go.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of folks that are in construction and that sort of thing where they are laid off because they can't work in groups. But I know in careers like yours where you have the technical expertise for crucial systems, you know, there's certain things that you learn how to do. You know, on my side of thing, I'm on the lower skilled side, but, you know, being a bartender, always have a job, right? You know,
right.
Except for now, basically. Right. And it's sort of interesting, you know, looking at what's going on with COVID. You know, there's certain careers, you know, if you're a medical professional, you're always going to be working, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or in something that has to do with infrastructure, you know, just because, you know, the world has to stay at home doesn't mean the lights don't need to stay on. And,
right.
You know, crucial systems all over the place that, you know, keep us alive and healthy and safe. Those kind of careers, you know, you're always going to have that job security. So it's very interesting as people are sort of lining up and trying to figure out what they want to do in life. If math and science calls out to you, hey, this might be a career path for you, because not only is it going to guarantee you things like paid internships, but hey, you know, when there's a crisis that happens, you're going to be working while others might not be.
Right. And then, you know, even for the college students that watch this and high school students, just so you know, like when I was in high school, I worked, summer youth employment, so I made $7.25 an hour. When I got that first internship, my freshman year after college, they sent me an offer letter in the mail. I didn't even know what an offer letter was. I'm like, they sending me a letter for me to, figure out if this how much I want to get paid. I thought I'd just go to an interview and they ask me. And he was like, yeah, if you want to, if that number is acceptable for you, you just sign it and send it back. So I'm waiting, because I got a phone interview because I was still in Vermont when I was applying. So I got to wait until like May when I go all the way back home. And I get there, I open it up, and it says $15 an hour. I'm like, this is more than double what I've ever gotten paid. I was like, of course I'm going to accept this. Then when I got the internship at Disney ABC, which is on 66th Street, that one was for $16 an hour. So there's other people that got internships, and it's like, it's that same kind of part-time money. But this was like money that most college and high school students ain't used to making unless, you just been working somewhere for a while. So that's like what made me stick to it. Like, no, there is. And, when you work the internships, you get, guidance from the other engineers, and they'll tell you, listen, I know this stuff is hard. Stick the course, and it's going to be worth it in the end. So when you hear that from the professionals in the field, it's always in the back of your head. You hear a professor giving you a hard time, and you're just like, I'm going to stick this out because I know what the end goal is. So that kept me, on pace because, again, a lot of other people left the different engineering programs in St. Mike's, in Vermont, and Ohio. But, knowing that I was using this as a vehicle to essentially fund the rest of my life, I knew I needed to stay that course.
That's all.
But yeah, after I graduated, I had $400. I broke down my job, search very methodically. I told myself Mondays, I treated my job search like it was my job. So Mondays, I told myself I would go on LinkedIn or Monster or ZipRecruiter, whatever site I was going to use, and I would save anywhere between 10 and 20 jobs. I started doing 10, and as weeks went on, I got more desperate, so I would do 20 a day. And I would literally just go save them so I could go back to them in one click. Save 10 to 20 of them. Then the next day, I would go in and I would apply to them because I already had my resume ready. And the next day, I'm just spending all day applying to 10, 20 jobs, and then I'm done for the day. And after that, Wednesday, I go right back, save 10 to 20 jobs. And then, so I know for a fact, because I was getting rejection letters, for years after that, I applied to well over 100 jobs in 30 days. So
I think that's incredible because I know a lot of people, especially as they're coming out of college, and if they went to a liberal arts school, they have a liberal arts degree, and they don't have some of these technical skills, and they're looking for work, and it can be very disheartening. You're applying to job after job. It seems like you're doing a lot, but I doubt many people are applying to 20 jobs a day for 30 days.
Right. Yeah.
And, because I think, there's a tendency for people to say, I applied everywhere.
Right.
I called everyone. How many people did you call?
Right. Did you call 250?
One person a day, 5 people a day. How many places have you applied? When did you give up? Are you applying on Saturday and Sunday?
Did you apply this morning?
Exactly. Silly. It's silly stuff. But I think, even with me, I very different because I didn't have a successful kind of like high school and college story. But, I own a staffing company, and I've owned it for the last 8.5 years. And I owe my company and my skill sets to going back to the 90s. In 1998, I think I took a 2-week bartending course. And then, where a lot of people will go to a bartending course, and now it's like they're waiting for the world to contact them to be a bartender. I was like, all right, well, now I'm going to go get a job as a bartender, and I'm not waiting for somebody to send me an offer letter that's specially for a bartender is not going to come. So, like the school makes a promise, like, we'll help you with finding a job, which is not really true. Right. I pounded the pavement for 3 days afterwards, and I was going to place after place, and I went to places where, you know, they were only hiring the girl that looked cute to be the bartender. I just went everywhere I could think of.
Mhm.
And I literally pounded the pavement. In the days that you pounded a pavement to go look for a job, I, you know, was actually going to places. I lived in the city. I lived in Midtown New York, and I was just going every place that I could think of. I was finding places, and within 3 days, I found a job. I got an interview with World Yacht, and nobody wants to hire somebody that doesn't have experience, but you just
Right. Yep.
work it. I had zero experience, but I had this bartending school certificate under my belt, and I was eager and I was hungry, and I just kept going until somebody hired me. And 3 days later, I had a job.
Right.
And it was a good job for me at the time, 1998. You know, I was getting paid $10 an hour for bartending, which, you know, a lot of bartending jobs, they're paying like $3.50 an hour plus tips.
Right.
Kind of thing. So I was happy. I was very happy with it. And years later, I'm utilizing it still. I'm utilizing that 2-week bartending course and testing my bartender. So, you know, it says a lot when you get just a little bit of education and apply yourself. Obviously, an engineering career is a little bit different and a lot more lucrative. So I think the lesson to be learned there in terms of, you know, somebody that's coming up is like, whatever you have, you know, utilize it, and don't, you know, think that, you know, you're only going to have to apply one place no matter what level of skill you have.
Yeah, because when I was applying all those jobs, I got discouraged after a while, and I remember my brother Lucas, who went to Randolph as well. He was on UB with me, and we still stay in contact to this day. Me and him started invest. Well, I started investing in the stock market with him. Like we put our money together.
What's Lucas's last name?
Gene, Jean. But I remember when I was in Akron when I was trying to find an internship, and I ended up getting the Disney ABC one. I was telling him about, you know, the difficulty, because I'm like, a lot of people are just not hiring interns right now at these design firms, because all my, you know, experience was in building design. So those were the type of companies I was applying for. And he was like, he said, well, what's the issue? I was like, a lot of them want you to have a 3.0 GPA, and I don't have that. And he goes, all right, so don't put your GPA. I'm like, what you mean? He was like, don't put your GPA on your resume. He was like, your resume is supposed to give all the good stuff about you, not the bad stuff. So he said, unless your GPA is a 4.0, don't put it on your resume. So I took my GPA off, and then I was like, what about the applications online that ask you your GPA? He said, if you got everything that they want with the job, then just put you got a 4.0. Tell them what they want to hear. He was like, and then if they ask for your transcript, then all right, you're just not going to get the job. You probably wasn't going to get it anyway. But you never know. He was like, and you know, most of them probably not even going to ask for a transcript. They just making you write it in because the people who don't got a 4.0 is discouraged. And sure enough, I took his advice, and ABC was one of the ones that I wrote in online. I got a 4.0, and they never asked me for my transcript. They were just so happy about all the AutoCAD experience and me having real experience with a company that they know of, which was STV. So they hired me. Again, it was another phone interview, and the guy pretty much hired me on the spot both times. So that's something I still do now. Even, you know, when I was applying, I was like, okay, I don't care, you know, if the stuff is in design anymore. I'm just going to apply to anything that's electrical engineering related. So I saw a lot of positions that said electrical inspector, and I didn't know what that was. I'm thinking that's somebody that, you know, gets a odometer and checks the voltage in an electronic device to make sure all the pieces function correctly. I don't have enough experience doing that to get hired to do it. But, you know, I just sent in the application. I'm like, listen, you know, all my internship experience and my interview experience, there's only been 2 jobs I ever took the interview and didn't get it, and like actually got rejected. All the other jobs I either turned it down or, you know, I got it. So I was always confident if I could get in the door and get an interview, I'll get the job. And sure enough, it worked. You know, I applied for an electrical inspector position. I got a call from a company in New Jersey called Matra, and they were telling me about the position, you know, working with Department of Transportation, maintaining the highways and the VMS signs. And they told me that the office was in the Bronx. So I'm like, that's great, because I was always under the impression that I was going to have to work 9 to 5 at a desk somewhere in downtown Manhattan doing design work. This job is actually in construction on the highways. So, you know, I needed a car at that point. So I never thought I needed a car. In the beginning, I was using my mom's car. I had my license. So I had to drive on the highway, you know, sit in the lane closure with the crews and inspect, you know, make sure they were following all the rules, doing what they were supposed to do, writing reports on what happened. And it was my background being able to study drawings and my background in AutoCAD just made it easier to read drawings because now you know how to make them. So when they had these giant drawings of all the different equipment on the highways that they showed me in the interview, I'm able to like understand exactly what they're showing me and like speak it as I'm looking at it. So that was their, you know, confirmation that I knew what I was talking about. Then they asked me, you know, how's my GPA? And I told them, it's good. Like it's probably around like a 3.0. And I'm just like, I got to find my transcript. I don't know where it is. And they go, it's okay. We don't even care. You have your degree, and I give them my degree. They look at it, make sure it's an engineering degree, and they see that it says electrical engineering tech, and they're like, that's actually better than if you would have had electrical engineering, because they said they got a lot of people that just have the engineering degree and it's all theory, but they don't know what to expect when they get into the field and see the stuff, you know, in front of their face. But me having that theory, you know, focus, you know, originally in college, and then at the end learning, you know, the field stuff by hand during the tech program made me like a double threat. So they hired me on the spot. The guy even drove me home because the office was out here in Throggsneck. I lived in Throggsneck at the time. It was like a 10-minute drive from my house. It just so happened I had to walk and take the bus around. Like you have to go around what highway is that? Like the Throggsneck extension, you have to walk around it to where the overpass is and come back around. So walking, it's like 20 minutes, 30 minutes. Driving, he drove me home, it was like 9 or 10 minutes. And I'm like, this is gonna be my new office, 10 minutes away from my house. I was getting paid at the time, which was below market value, but I was getting paid like $28 an hour, you know, before taxes. So after taxes, that probably translates to like probably $16, $18 an hour or something. But you know, I felt like if I fell into a perfect position, and it just so happened that the timing was perfect because usually a young person with no experience would never get a position like that. But they literally just needed the manpower, and they just paid me a little less than other people.
It's not like you didn't put the work in to find that position, because that's sort of the way the job market works, is that you have to find your opportunity. It's not
Right.
like you're going to graduate college and then that perfect position that perfectly suits your skills is going to magically open up, and
Right.
a light is going to shine from the sky, guiding them on a path to it. That's not really the way it works. You gotta hustle and find it. And I think, sort of a happy ending to the challenging, although you had great experiences at the places you went, you met great people, but it wasn't the college experience that I think you set out to have exactly.
Right.
The happy ending to this story is that you got the degree, you got the piece of paper that gets you in the door,
Right.
and you had the technical skills, and it magically, it happened in a nice way that not only you had the technical skills, but the skills that were applicable to the job that it sounds like you enjoy doing, which,
and then even living so close to the office because it's construction, and like we have to be there at 7 a.m.
Right.
So like,
I look at people and they're commuting an hour to work, and I'm like, man, it doesn't have to be that hard. It doesn't have to be that way. And I know some people enjoy it more than others, but for me, I fall asleep in the car. I'm like, now I commute for the most part down the stairs to my office, and I get to see my children every day. And that's a big part of career is work-life balance, and finding that kind of position that allows you to live the life that you want to lead. And so many people that, are like, in high school, and they're like, oh, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a lawyer. They don't necessarily understand the ramifications of what that means for you in your life, having a marriage, having children, having other passions, things that you enjoy to do outside of work, which I know we're going to get into. So let's talk a little bit about CEO of Cassaberry Consulting.
Right. So how Cassaberry Consulting even came about, my senior year of college, I in University of Akron, I was playing basketball one day and I tore my shoulder out of place, like on some crazy play. Somebody, fell on my arm or whatever. So I dislocated my shoulder. I had to go to the hospital. They put it back in place. I was in a sling for like a week. And I never liked taking like pain medicine because it always made me groggy. So that night, because I was in pain, I pretty much just sat at my desk thinking the whole night. And I thought to myself, like, Trevor, you're about to graduate. It was coming to a realization how much debt I was actually in because going to University of Akron, I had no financial aid package because I was a transfer student and my mom made a lot. So I had to just take the whole thing out in loans, which was also a terrible idea. And that wasn't even like federal subsidized loan. That was private loans from Discover Bank, which had an interest rate that was like 9%. It was the worst choice I ever made in my life. But I'm like, you're about to be, $100,000, $110,000 in debt. How are you supposed to pay that back? So I was told that when I graduated, I should expect to make a salary around 70K. That was absolutely wrong. I actually, when I graduated, getting that 28.50 an hour, that salary is technically like a 56, 58,000 or something like that. But remember, that's before taxes. So one thing I try to express to people now, as a business consultant is calculate your income after taxes because that's how much money you actually touch, especially if you're not, self-employed. But when I tore my shoulder out of place that night, I was watching a basketball game, and since I couldn't go to sleep from the pain, I was just thinking to myself, what am I going to do to make money? And I'm like, I got engineering. I can't say basketball because my shoulder's out of place. It's not like I have a agent where I can go pro overseas or something like that. And I used to, I didn't want to be a lifeguard the rest of my life. I used to do math tutoring. I'm not about to tutor people in math every day after work. That's not going to be what changes my life. So I was like, that means I have to start learning about money and business and all of that other stuff right now. So that same night, I'm like, it's late. What can I do? What can I do? I'm watching the NBA and I'm just like, I'm going to write down 10 things I would change about the NBA. And I wrote down a list of 10 things. And then over time, that was February of 2016. From then on, I started every single day learning, just researching on my own about business, investing, and everything in between. So any company, like an insurance company, I didn't know how they made money. I didn't understand it. I just researched it myself. And that's probably the one thing I can take away from college because, like I said earlier, in the classroom, they just give you a little introduction and you have to go home and read and research on your own to actually learn is you don't become successful in college until you realize you have to dedicate yourself to teaching yourself. Like the professor is there to assist you and introduce you to new topics, but you have to go learn it on your own. If you're not willing to do the research, you're just not going to learn it because the professor does not feel it's their job to teach you every little thing. They give you a syllabus telling you the stuff you need to learn, not that they're going to teach it all to you, one-on-one.
Yeah, and I think that's something that, high school students need to understand.
Especially.
That what you're supposed to be learning in, elementary education and even into high school education, you're not necessarily learning things for a career, you're learning how to learn. So
right.
When they teach you history, when they teach you, writing, you're learning writing not because, a high school teacher is going to teach you how to write a book. They're teaching you the basics and fundamentals so that now you're in college, they don't have to teach you punctuation. They don't have they don't have to teach you how to put a sentence together. Now it's about the research and the ability to take those fundamental skills. And I think it's hard for high school students to understand because they're like, why do I need to learn this math? Why do I need to learn, I'm not going to use these fractions. I'm not going to use this stuff. And it's so interesting for me when my kids talk about it because I'm like, I own a business.
Yes, you are.
I own a business and everything from geometry to calculus to algebra, those are things that if you're if you're allergic to them, it's going to hurt you when you have to now work with tax professionals
Yeah.
and rely on people to do work for you that you're going to have little to no understanding of, because now you have no basis for understanding if they're doing their job well, which means they have power over you and you have no ability to sort of open that up and see what they're doing. You know, even just basic understanding of things, you know, if you're working with a plumber, to know, wow, there's a mess of wires and shoddy looking work. I don't need to know how to put the whole plumbing system together, but I need to know what that work should look like when it's done, at least on a very basic element. That way I can judge whether or not this professional is doing a good job or not. Otherwise, people are taking me to the cleaners.
Right. Yeah. So, you know, that's exactly it. Because my main thing was learning all of this stuff about business. You know, it was extremely beneficial because, you know, what I ended up doing with those 10 things that I changed about the MBA, that became my first business plan. Like, I would just, at one point, it got to the point, you know, I wrote everything I changed about the MBA. And it's just like, okay, you know, at this point, I'd have to be a billionaire to pull all of this off. And, you know, I don't have any money for that, so I'm done here. But then I'm like, okay, Trevor, just pretend you was a billionaire, or pretend that money wasn't an option, or you knew a billionaire that was interested. He said he'd put up the money, or she would put up the money. Then what? Then it was like, okay, well, now that means I got to find quotes and, you know, give them how much it will cost and what size piece of real estate they're going to need to build the gym, what kind of engineers they're going to need to, you know, draft it up, or what kind of contractors they'll need to, you know, perform it. So, you know, I'm just literally, I'd go as far as to just look, okay, STV Inc. would be the company that designs it. Okay, I find contractors online that build the basketball courts and all this other stuff. And I'm like, you know, it got to the point I have it sitting at all times, a full plan to build a professional basketball league in the Bronx. And in me having to learn everything I need to learn to make that plan, I end up learning so much more about business and investing. And at the end, it just came down to the point of, Trevor, I just learned, Trevor, if you want to be financially successful, you won't be doing it on your own. You will need other people around you that have capital and also assets. Because it was like, you know, it got to the point I'm like, all right, you know, the jerseys that get cleaned, they're going to need, the jerseys that get worn, I'm not going to want, a professional athlete doesn't go home and wash his jersey and bring it to the game. They leave it there and it gets done by whoever does the laundry. So where are we going to do that? So I'm like, okay, either I need to have a laundromat or I need to know somebody that has a laundromat. So at that point, I'm like, okay, if I just know someone that has a laundromat, I mean, I don't need the money. You know, at that point, it's just like, get this person to own one of the teams. And, you know, so at that point, I start learning, okay, I don't need capital for everything. I need people that have capital, people that can understand how to do different things and put them in position. And as long as everybody understands their position and how it puts the whole goal together, you know, and how they benefit from it, everybody will be there for the win. So it's like, you might own the catering company, I might own the gym, and somebody else might own the laundromat. But if the laundromat guy knows I can put up some money, own a basketball team, make money that way, and then I know my laundromat still makes money because all the jerseys get washed here, he's happy. You know, after every game, the meal that gets eaten is presented by your catering company. You're happy now. Okay, now I think I should own a basketball team or sponsor this tournament. Me, as the person who owns the gym, if I have a league in the gym, now more people come to the gym to see other things. If I have other businesses in the gym, like an arena would have, you know, people can now shop at those businesses. I can charge them rent. So it's like, that's how I started learning business, just building out that business plan. So I knew by the time I graduated that at some point I would start a business, because I would need smaller businesses to fund what was my dream at the time of starting that basketball league.
That's amazing. And I love that, because that's, they're actually doing that, which is so impressive, because when I compare it to like NYC education, my own education, my experience with Randolph, there's so many things that are lacking in that elementary and high school education. My children right now are receiving a lot of project-based learning And it's amazing to see them work through things. So they have them doing things like putting together vacations and doing commercials for businesses.
Right, right.
And it's like,
That's great. I like that.
it's wonderful because, you know, for me, I see it like that's the information that I utilize on a daily basis to understand, interpret the world, and actually make money and put food on the table for folks. And they're teaching them at a very early age to think about the world in a way that you're expressing in terms of thinking about like, okay, I have a dream, I have a project that I want to put together. What will that look like in order to actually make it work? So it forces people to think, all right, you know, if I want this element, what else needs to happen here for me to get to this point? And that project-based learning kind of stuff is just amazing for that. So you have this company called Cassaberry Consulting. So what are you doing right now? What's the current dream?
Right. So fast forward, me and my wife ended up moving in together in March of 2017. In April of 2017, we find out she was pregnant. So that was like the kick in the butt that told me like, you need to start it now. Like you don't wait 5 years now. Now you start it now.
It's funny how life pressures you in certain ways to get a fire under you. Yeah.
Right. So at the time, I was like, okay, I need to start a business this month, and it's like it's May 1st, 2017, and I say I can either because at the time I was watching a lot of Dr. Boyce Watkins because he was like my motivational push, online. I don't know if you ever heard of him, but he was my introduction to you need to start a business. Here's why. Here's all the things you don't know about money. And he used to be a finance professor at Syracuse University. So he had an interview with this guy named Andre Hatchett, who is now one of my business mentors. And he does some work with my wife as well. Like he's one of her clients right now for social media marketing. But he had an interview pretty much talking about a mobile notary company that he started because so many companies need notaries. He started a mobile one where, that's Dr. Boyce. He had an interview with Andre Hatchett talking about a mobile notary company where you learn how to become a notary. You don't even need a college degree or anything to do it. And then you find clients online that'll all be, law offices, real estate offices, people that need fingerprinting done, people, some people that need to get passports notarized, some people who need to get, wedding or divorce documents notarized. He was like, you just pitch your services to a certain niche, find a few clientele, and then use them to give you leads to new clientele. He's just like, it's not a get-rich-quick business, but it's a sustainable business because even in a recession, it's a need-based service. And as long as you know where to find the need, you're good. So I was going to go that route, and then I narrowed it down to either that or business consulting because for the last year and change, I had just been studying business every day. And I decided on business consulting because I knew I could start doing that the following day. I didn't have to go take a test. And
it's funny, ease of entry will define a lot of our decisions around business. And that's not necessarily a negative thing because, we don't want, paralysis by analysis, right? So
right.
It get very challenging if we're thinking of something complicated. And that doesn't mean we don't have big dreams. I think it's interesting when you follow people like Elon Musk. Yes, he has Tesla and he has SpaceX. Those are hard to enter industries.
Right.
He didn't start out with Tesla and SpaceX.
Yeah.
He started
out PayPal.
Exactly. Right, which was a little bit easier to get into. And for folks that, were like, oh my goodness, no, that's super complicated. Man, you have access to the internet. There's so much stuff that you can do. A little bit of engineering knowledge goes away. Hey.
Right.
And, get the education, do the research online. You would be surprised what you can build from the comfort of your living room with your laptop.
Right. And that's just a testament to it all because I know, I love what I do right now. The way everything came together, like, although I had a lot of hiccups and everything, like it all came together exactly the way I needed it to come together. So with Cassaberry Consulting.
So yeah, tell us the services that you're offering to people. I know this has been a long interview, and I want to wrap it up in a bow. I'll see if I can forward over the content to you, and maybe we can chop up some of it like we talked about, because I think there's so many critical pieces here, and I know not everyone's going to have the attention span to get through this whole thing. But I want to deliver. I mean, I think there's a lot to here for people to take away. So I want to deliver it to many as people. For everybody that's been listening all along, thank you for hanging in there, and talk to us about, you know, what's going on now with your career right now, Trevor. Talk about, first of all, Cassaberry Consulting, what you're offering, and then what you're also doing on the engineering side, which I think is also interesting.
Right. So we started off with just business consulting services. So it was primarily teaching people how to structure a business plan, and teaching what an LLC was, and things of that nature. Eventually, I got into stock market investing. And once I was able to, you know, become very profitable in 2017 doing that, I felt confident, you know, teaching others. So now we offer stock market investment consulting. Now, you know, it's a lot more than just the structure of the business or how to start investing. It's more so goal orientated. So for business consulting, now we have 3 tiers. The package number 1 is pretty much to help you conceptualize a business idea. So you can do that in one consultation. That's $125. The second one is pretty much if you have an idea conceptualized and now you're trying to put together a plan for it. Maybe you don't know how much it'll cost or something, or you don't exactly know the steps of putting it together. That's package number 2. We do that within 4 consultations. And then the last package, which we do in 10 consultations, is pretty much take you from conceptualized idea, we create the plan for you, and we execute the plan alongside you. And that's done within 10 consultations. So we've helped people start all sorts of businesses, from real estate consulting businesses to other financial consulting businesses to writing consulting businesses to hair care lines, photography businesses, and also everything in between. The investment
I'm going to encourage people at this point. Go on to Cassaberry.com, get in contact with you. I know you're open to talking to people and getting started. And getting the information in their hands and letting them run with it.
Right. The investment consultant, we offer stock market investing, the same kind of package, one consultation, 4 or 10. We also offer real estate consulting. So I had a client, Stephanie Barnes, who started her own company, Stephanis Solutions, where she taught real estate consulting. And she's also a licensed real estate agent and a graduate from the J. Morrison Real Estate Academy. So she provides the real estate investing services, or the real estate investing consulting services, as well as real estate agent services. We offer social media marketing through All That Jazz company. That's owned by Jasmine Cordu. She was also a student at A. Randolph. She was captain of Urban DVD.
That's
and my wife, of course,
Jasmine as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and then my wife, Akosa, she provides the literary business consulting and writing and editing services for us as well. Lastly, we offer negotiation consulting. So I've met with employees that wanted to ask their boss for a raise, and they just don't really know how to go about it. They don't even know what number to ask for. So I teach them how to sit down, how to approach it. And the main thing is just knowing
that's great. And I think that, is telling, because I think that's part of your story that you had challenges with before with, not doing enough research, about the end all goal. And it's such a big lesson, because as you get into a job, as you get into a college, whatever that package that they give you from the beginning sort of dictates what's going to go on later on, for better or for worse. And I talk about this because I talk to a lot of people that are early on in their career and, dealing with stuff. I was just recently talking to somebody that was an accounting grad, had their master's. She was looking for a job, and I was telling her, listen, make sure you negotiate that starting salary, because it's going to dictate your salary going forward, especially with that company. But even if you leave, that history is going to define your own sort of sense of self-value. It's going to define how other people value. We see it all the time in terms of, if I'm working with a corporation, maybe I've been there for 10 years, I'm an employee there. And so they hired a consultant, and for some reason, because this person is coming in as a consultant, they value that consultant's opinion a little bit more than mine.
Right.
And it's not necessarily because they have more information than I have, more skills than I have.
Yeah, they just charged more.
Right, they charge more, and so the company will value their opinion because they're shelling out more money, and they value that opinion based on the price of that ticket. I mean, it's such a silly thing, but it happens all the time. So our understanding of our ability to charge more, to get paid more, it really affects how people even see us inside of our own industries, and it's so important. So I think it might be of extreme value for somebody to work with you that maybe doesn't feel confident in that area to get a little bit more money. And, you know, I think part of us as professionals understanding that sometimes it takes money to make money. If I spend a little bit of money and work with a professional that knows a little bit more about negotiation, how much more will that benefit me down the line? And being forward thinking and forward looking that way is really important. So I encourage people to get in contact with you for those services, because I think it would extremely benefit them, especially if they don't feel confident in that area.
Right, because the number one factor of the game is just leverage, and you only know what leverage you got if you know it. So
you only know what you know, and you don't know what somebody else might know. Absolutely.
Right. So there's people that work somewhere and they feel like they're getting underpaid because they do more than what's in their job description. That, the fact that you're doing more than what's in your job description means that you now have leverage, especially if you're the only person that provides certain services. So like I knew that at my last project, I was the only person that could do, design work. There was a gas explosion on Northern Boulevard, and I had to go out there with electricians, open up every manhole from 114th Street all the way to 29th Street, take pictures, take data of all the conduit and fiber cable and electric cable that was in that entire run of that 100 and something block stretch, and, draw it out by hand on top of an old drawing that they had, just so they could send it to another company to make it digital. And when I did that, the other inspectors in the office were looking on the side, and one of them were telling me like, Trevor, it's a good thing you're here because I would have never been able to do that.
That's great.
And so when he told me that, and literally all the other inspectors, all three of them at some point or another told me there was something I did on the job that they would have never been able to do. And that was the last one. And I was just like, once I heard that, I'm like, there's no reason why I shouldn't at least be getting paid as the lead inspector on this job. So
I love pieces like that in people's careers. I've had similar moments where, it takes a lot of work. I mean, I think, that is the definition of experience.
Mm-hmm.
When people talk about experience, you need experience to do this job. Why do I need experience? I mean, I know how to lift this. I know how to put this there. I know how to do all this. You might know how to do something, but you don't have the experience of how that works in actuality, how it works when there's different elements. I think of you doing that project of going from, 114th Street to what was 29th.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a crazy thing. And until you have an experience like that, you don't know the man hours that goes into it.
Yeah,
yes, you can
like 2 weeks.
but having the actual experience of it tells you so much more information. And then the little comment, right? Like that piece of like somebody saying it's a good thing you're here because nobody else knows how to do this. And then going back in your story and having that gentleman tell you, listen, you can read that book, but that's not going to be what gets you the job.
Right.
And that's drawing. That's what's going to get you the job. That's what's going to get you the payment, which I hear loud and clear because here you are drawing the drawing to create the digital map. And, that advice probably is, which you got from being on the job, working with people and having that hands-on experience. You didn't get that in the college classroom.
Right. And I even know, because I worked not just in the field, but because I was there for like 3.5 years, I had a lot of office experience too. So that's why I started learning the backsides of, you know, government contracting, because how I got my job, you know, I was working on a Department of Transportation contract for the state, but I was technically hired by a private company in New Jersey. So I never really understood how that worked, but I didn't ask too many questions. And after a while, I started learning.
Let me just resounding exclamation point. Because I think so many people walk through life that same way, right? I didn't understand how it works, but I just,
right.
I do it. And it's such a big deal when you're working in a job and you don't understand something. Ask those questions. You're applying to a college and you don't understand something. Ask those questions. Somebody's telling you about a program, you don't understand all the details. Ask those questions. Don't just accept this stuff. Yeah, absolutely. So I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I thought that was huge. So we're talking about government contracts, and this is something I've been working for 8.5 years. I do business on a handshake with everybody, and a big part of my business suffers because one of the biggest companies that I work with is Compass Group, and they have a approved buyer, so a corporate company that actually handles their purchasing department. And I have so many aches and pains on the business side because I'm not an approved vendor and haven't figured out how to work this system and become an approved vendor. And I know there's things that I could probably be doing, leveraging the fact that my wife is Latina and she's a 50% owner of the business.
Oh yeah, Cameron, come on, you know that already.
but I don't take advantage of any of that. So hopefully you'll work with me and we'll improve my business on that. But that's my story, but this is your story and how you are leveraging your engineering know-how, your business know-how, and the current system of the world. So talk to it.
So it all tied back into just knowing leverage for negotiation. So with me learning all of that back stuff, I know, okay, by them being able to send me out doing this extra work, they don't have to pay, Parsons Engineering, which was a much bigger and more expensive engineering company, to send one of their specialists out to do stuff. Because just calling that company, they would charge the state $1,000. So that if you had to call them, you better be setting it up for them to come out. Otherwise, you wasted $1,000. So me knowing that, it's just like every time I do an extra thing, I just save them $1,000 by answering that question.
But you're getting like $50 an hour for something that if you weren't there, they'd have to pay $1,000 an hour.
Exactly. Not even an hour, just a flat rate phone call, $1,000. Like you better pay more if you're going to pay the $1,000. Is essentially how the model goes. And so understanding all that, just like, okay, I saved them too much money for me not to be the one asking for more. Like, technically, I'm saving them $100 an hour, give or take, so I should be able to ask for $20 an hour more. But obviously, you can't just walk in, hey, can you double my salary? So, we're just understanding the leverage. But with me understanding the government contracts, because at one point I started thinking about, I need to get a raise and stuff like that. You get your regular 2% raise during the year, but you don't really notice it because after taxes.
Then going back to negotiation, that's the way raises work. That's what most companies do. And I talk a lot about this for people that, are working towards career. I talk about, it's one thing to be, on the engineering side. So, okay, I have this engineering degree. Who are the people that make the most money in a company? And you think
about the engineers.
Well, this is the thing, right? So if I have an engineering company, think about any major engineering company. You can be an engineer working in the trenches, doing, sort of the grunt work of the company. But if you're the guy that's going out and doing the handshakes, golf course, selling the contract, who's getting paid more?
Right.
And I guarantee you, it's the person bringing money into the company. Now, there are geniuses that it's like, okay, Trevor Cassaberry works here. Nobody else has Trevor Cassaberry. and we're going to pay him a lot of money to be here. That's absolutely true. And there's folks like that work at Google, and so many people are fighting for those positions. But, you know, you look at somebody, you know, like the CEO of Google, you know, and they've had presidents. These aren't necessarily guys that are technical geniuses.
Right.
They're administrative folks that do a lot of sales work. And does their paycheck and their stock options look better than the geniuses that are working for Google? Absolutely. Why? Because they're the folks that, okay, you made a great way for us to make money, but I'm the actual person that goes out and does that handshake with Verizon. I'm that guy that does that handshake with
AT&T,
real estate. Exactly. All these
transit.
Exactly. You know, I'm the guy that's selling the technology and actually bringing the money in that pays you genius number one and genius number two over there and genius number three, because I can find another genius, but I might not be able to find the person that has the relationships that are actually going to bring the checks in that actually pays everybody. There's a lot of companies out there that have genius products, but they couldn't figure out a way to monetize them. And guess where they are now? We don't know their names, but we know we know PayPal. We know the successful companies, but we don't know those companies that had genius products, but they couldn't monetize them. I mean, I think about, you know, companies. There was that company called Vine, and it's so funny that
Vine.
that TikTok is blowing up now because it's almost the same exact premise, and TikTok is successful and making money, and Vine was incredibly enjoyable to watch. I participated, and it's gone.
Yeah, what I noticed is companies like that, you know, and I'll go back to the government contracting, but it seems like when you're the first of the batch, you either have to like be the leader of innovation going forward and keep doing more innovative things, or you eventually end up selling that company to another bigger company that can, like, you know, scale it way bigger than you can. So like Snapchat had the option to be bought by like Instagram at one point, and they said no. So they had, now Snapchat is like the ones, they're always with new filters and innovating new stuff constantly, because that's how they keep their audience. Versus Vine, when I think they tried to get, I think Instagram or Facebook, whoever tried, I mean, that's the same company, they tried to buy Vine. Vine said no. All Facebook and Instagram did, or what they did with Instagram was allow you to put up videos, and then they were like, we already got more people anyway, and then boom, nobody was using Vine anymore. And it was just like they had to pick which way they were going to go. Do we plan on
I love all the business conversations, because it's so relevant to anybody trying to innovate or do something different, because, you know, there's lots of different models, and there's, I think for every example of like the company that got bought and succeeded because they got bought, you have a story like Skype. So Skype, I think, was bought by IBM, I believe. And Skype was huge for a while, and then they got bought out, and we're in, you know, April of 2020, and video conferencing is huge right now. But Skype really isn't a part of the conversation. Everybody's on Zoom or House Party, and Skype really isn't a part of the conversation. And you know, even me personally, like, it's difficult to get on a Skype call. And why is that? Because they sold and they stopped innovating. The company that bought them, they're not innovating.
They plateaued.
On the other side of that, you have Instagram, which was bought by Facebook, and basically Facebook bought Instagram, added these story features, and then Snapchat, which, you know, is still around, but not nearly as successful as Instagram, because, you know, they just came along. Facebook bought Instagram and just ate Snapchat steak. Like, they just stole the plate out from under them, because they kept innovating, and you know, just, you know, you can see the future and you do something about it. I think, you know, what you're going to talk about right now for any business, because whether you're a personal trainer, writing a book, somebody that is starting whatever business on the side or looking to take their career from being an employee to being an owner, what you're going to talk about is so crucially important. Again, 8.5 years of doing business, and this is part of the missing puzzle for me. Contract work, understanding that when you go through a tough time, if you have relationships and contracts in place, that is a whole different level. So you want to take yourself from being nobody knows you to AT&T. Let's talk about it.
Right. So how government contract works is, in my situation, New York State doesn't hire full-time, engineers, or at least they don't hire enough for all the manpower that they have to do, because you never know if there's going to be an emergency construction or something, and they want to have that money, sitting on the side to pay somebody to fix it. Also, they, at that point, they'd have to have all the trucks and all the materials that go along with it in contract. So they pretty much take the tax dollars, and every city and state does government contracting. And, there's federal contracting too. They pretty much take the percentage of tax dollars and allocate it to different places. So some is education, some is, if it's federal, it's, defense, some is construction, like New York has a lot in construction, some is science, blah, 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 blah. So let's say, for instance, the highways. The highways are owned technically by New York State Department of Transportation, while the streets, the local streets, are owned by New York City Department of Transportation. So when the street light somewhere isn't working, or the street light that tells you when to walk and when to stop walking isn't working, the city doesn't just go out there and fix it themselves. A lot of times they may hire a contractor to pretty much be the emergency and routine maintenance for those things that they use 24/7. In our case, we worked with a large electrician company called EJ Electric. They're also the ones that do the street lighting stuff. And pretty much they won the contract. Like the state will put out a contract, for businesses, and tell them, this is what this contract entails. We want to do these whatever things. So in this case, it was, we want somebody that can fix all the cameras and VMSs, and also go around and maintain them on a daily to weekly basis. EJ Electric knows that they can do those things, so they put out, they put in a bid for it, which is essentially they put in an offer showing that they have all the qualifications to do these things that are in this project, and they pretty much write how much it will cost, for each item. So how much it would cost for them to provide all of these things. So how much they charge for each electrician that they would need, how much they charge for each truck that they would need, and things of that nature. Now, it just doesn't only apply for construction. Like, there's other people that have that have contracts where they supply the helmets. All they got to do is go somewhere, figure out how much it costs to buy, 200 helmets, because the contract will say they need 200 helmets, on the monthly basis. You just say, okay, I can get 200 helmets for $2,000, and that's your bid that you put in. Another company may be able to get it for a little more or a little less. You show the quality of the helmet and all of that stuff. And pretty much the city or state agency that put out that bid will choose based upon the pricing. So they'll get an outside consultant to say what the price point is, like what they should be looking for. So maybe they say, for this construction project, maintaining these highway cameras and VMSs, you guys should expect to pay, $8 million for this contract for the next 3 years. Now they'll look for all the bids that are, outside of a 10% range of $8 million, they'll throw out, because they'll either say those are too high if they're more than, 8.8 million, or they'll say they're underbidding if they're, less than, 7.2 million. And then all that.
Bring this home for folks. How does this apply to you? So what are you doing to take advantage of understanding how these government contracts work?
So basically, when I started Cassaberry Consulting, I listed it as a corporate consulting company strategically. So at that point now, I can consult companies on anything, as opposed to only being able to consult them on marketing or books or online websites or whatever else. It's just anything corporate I can consult on, which is why I was able to put in the investing. When it comes to these contracts, because I have the expertise being in inspection, like the same company I work for, they won a contract to provide inspection for that same contract. So I have my company listed as a vendor for New York State and for New York City, and as well for New York City Housing Authority, NYCHT, because I know that they have construction contracts, and legally you can't do construction without having some sort of construction or safety inspector on the site due to OSHA regulations, which is national. OSHA stands for Occupation Safety and Health Administration, something like that. So because I know there's a need for the service I provide, and I know that the company that I work for, let's say they're paying me $30 an hour, they may be charging $58 an hour. So I'm like, instead of me being mad about not getting this $3 raise or this $5 raise, I can start the company on the back end, and I know I can technically get, and I wrote it in the book, a 97% raise. And I say that because a company that wins a bid, they're not allowed to make more than 97% of what each employee is making based on how much they charge for their services. So if I charge $100 for your services, or if I charge $200 for your services, I can't make $100 off of that. I can only make, 97% of what you make. The way I'll make money is if, which is my goal, basically I'll work the contract myself, so I'll get my salary like I do now, and then my company will also get that remainder as opposed to me working for somebody else. And then as I hire other inspectors, I'm able to get personally another small check, and the company is able to get a check for each person I have working for me. So that's pretty much what my goal is to bid on the same kind of construction contracts to provide inspection services, because I'm an inspector and I know other inspectors. And then win the contract. I can come in as a subcontractor for a larger firm, which is, I worked for a subcontractor before, or I know.
How far away are you, do you think, from being able to take advantage of these government contracts?
So basically, with those government contracts, they have things that they call set-asides, where they set aside a percentage of the money for each contract to go to disadvantaged businesses. So those are women-owned businesses, minority-owned businesses, businesses that are owned by somebody from a low-income community. So if you put on that you're a local-owned business, at that point for the contract, you'll have to hire people. At least half the people working on that contract have to live in a low-income area. So those different set-asides I qualify for. I qualify for the minority-owned business, the local-owned business, and the emerging business, the emerging business enterprise.
And this is something I suck at, but just taking advantage of the opportunities that are available to you.
Right. So it's, again, it just comes down to leverage. I technically could go bid on a contract right now since I'm a registered vendor, but I don't have the same background as, WSP or STV or any other large company, Intech or TRC.
Which
so
you have to know enough, just to sort of add the context here, but you got to know enough how to register yourself, which isn't incredibly difficult, but you just need to know what you're doing in terms of registering yourself as a business and having whatever requirements that they require in place.
Right. So I got basically two ways that I'm working at it, putting leverage in place. One is I've worked for these companies. So I've worked for TRC, Matra, Harani, Intech, and now WSP, which are all major engineering companies, as well as STV. So I have connections there where, like WSP, they have their own vendor list because they subcontract other companies.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to end up putting my business on that WSP vendor list. So now if they need my expertise for another contract, when it's time to negotiate how much I'm going to get paid for that position, I can say, this is how much I want, but hire me through my vendor company, EIN, instead of hiring me as an employee. So now I'm able to, charge a lot more because they don't have to, give me a benefits package and stuff. I just get those things on my own, which I already know how to do.
I love this. This is like business 101 because, if somebody would have told me, 9 years ago, this is what you need to focus on business, I'd be ahead of the game and have more of those relationships in place, because those are the relationships that, now really drive my business forward, drive up percentages, because having those relationships with, makes it easier to conduct business, because having those relationships in place, there's less me going out and searching for work and more work coming directly to me. Exactly. Referring me and asking for me and knowing, hey, we got a job that's already going to come in, and they're just funneling it right into me.
Right. So being that I'm already registered as a vendor, again, I could bid on projects right now, but with my competition being these large companies, even if I was cheaper than them in the same price range, they have the history showing that they've been doing government contracts for decades, and I haven't. So they still get the bid over me. But if I pretty much want to come in as a subcontractor, meaning get in on one of their vendor lists, either using the vendor list online or my networking by knowing project managers and directors of construction in those companies. Where pretty much they can hire me again for another project and not just come in as a subcontractor. The benefit to that is, one, I'm still able to work for myself. Just my company is a subcontractor for them, and I'm still able to charge whatever rate I want. But the major benefit is they have to put my business into the bid proposal. And obviously, because my business is in there, I have to see it. So now at that point, I get to see exactly how these companies construct their bids and what kind of numbers they're charging for these different services.
I love this, because this is about access, right?
Right.
Because I think what so many folks lack, in particular, and this is why these programs exist, there's an opportunity there, and the reason for that opportunity is to provide this type of access, and I love that you're taking advantage of it. Again, so many people's stories, mine included, are consisting of these experiences where there was an opportunity, I walked right by it, I didn't know it was even there, and for that reason, I didn't take advantage of it. Right. And you're not doing that. And I think that that's amazing. And I really want people to get in touch with you, to take advantage of your knowledge. If there's an engineering student or somebody that may be in college, is there an opportunity for them to potentially use you as a mentor, get in touch with you, potentially work with you, intern with either you or a company that you're working with?
Well, so right now I'm actually in the process, because I already started the minority business certification application. I just want to complete the application, get the minority business certification, because now I have the leverage to now come in and say, this is how I benefit these companies as a subcontractor, because they need that minority business on their bid proposal for that percentage. Once I get my first contract, I'll have a idea of how many inspectors and engineers I'll need for different kind of contracts and what other contracts are out there and how to go after them. But I do have on Cassaberry.com in the footer of the page, all the way at the bottom, there's a link there for careers. So if somebody wants to just put in their name and email so they can upload a resume or something like that, they can contact me there and eventually send me their resume, because I am building a directory of different engineers and their backgrounds, because at some point I'll have to reach out to those people.
Yeah, and I think I think there's the danger when maybe a student or somebody that is in college hears a professional say something like that. They're like, "Oh man, he doesn't got anything really going on for me right now. It's going to be a waste of time for me to reach out." And this is what I think is so important. If you're a young person, and you're somebody that's looking to get into the career market, Trevor Cassaberry, especially if you're an alum of Randolph, is somebody that you're going to have a personal connection with. And he's going to be a mogul. He's going to be somebody that has a lot of money coming in, a lot of work, and his time is going to be taken up. He's a family man already. This is the time. Strike while the iron is hot. Create that relationship now. If you need a sort of similar frame of reference, do you want to get married to the woman that knows you and loves you when you're poor, or do you want to get into that relationship with that significant other that only knows you when you're wealthy and on top? Who are we trusting more? And I just put it that way because I think that maybe helps people to understand that pressing on this careers button right now puts you on the fast track and the early road to later success. Getting in touch with a entrepreneur early on is going to benefit you so much more than trying to reach out to them when they're already on top and things are already coming in and the cash is raining in, because you're going to have to do so much more to make an impression and get through the noise, because there's going to be a lot of people knocking on your door. I'm very sure of it. In the days and years to come.
Right. So basically, I have I'm already set up to be a primary contractor or consultant rather. I'm putting myself in position just through my network to be a subcontractor, and pretty much doing that minority business certification application, I realized I needed certain tax documents that I didn't have in relation to my business. So I reached out to my business mentor again, Andre Hatchett, and I asked him, does he know like a good accountant? Because I needed somebody that could tell me all the information about taxes I didn't know. I knew how to like manipulate my taxes as an entrepreneur to the point where, I'm able to write off business expenses because I'm self-employed, but I didn't know, exactly how to file, all the taxes outside of my personal ones on TurboTax. So he got me in contact with a good enough accountant. I was using one through 1-800-ACCOUNTANT, but because that person wasn't from New York and, probably wasn't used to dealing with my specific business type, he didn't have, certain information that this woman had. Her name is Ataya on Instagram. You can find at The Savvy Accountant. And, she's not cheap by any means, but she knows it all. So I trusted in her. And I recently just paid her to go back through my last 3 years of my business taxes, just make sure everything is compliant and give me the paperwork that I need for the application. And the reason I was confident in her is I told her my situation and, my plan to go after the government contracts and why I even need the service. And she was able to tell me she's performed this service before 4 companies that wanted to bid on government contracts. So, she understood everything that needed to be done. So she's pretty much yes, that's her. So she's in the process of fixing my taxes, pretty much so I can finish that application. Once I have the application, what I've been doing over the last few weeks home during this coronavirus stuff, I pretty much built, through LinkedIn, a whole list of project managers, construction directors, office engineers, and things of that nature that I, just networked with on LinkedIn. So basically, once my company is in a position where I can use the subcontracting leverage with the minority business certification and the subcontracting leverage with the businesses I already know and have worked for, I can reach out to these people and see if they have any private contracts that they're trying to look for services for. And if so, let them know what services I provide, which at this point, now with me working in this new contract with transit and construction management in more of an office engineer position, I'm now able to say I can offer services from field inspection to office engineer to also a chief inspector, just because I know what it takes for chief inspection. So as long as they have me doing something that was, highway, fiber, communications related, I could act as a chief inspector. If it was something outside of that, I'd take an office engineer or field inspector role and then just find a chief inspector for the position. So even on my website, you'll see on the bottom, there's a link there for construction. That's the link I'll be sending to those construction companies if they want to get in contact with me to inquire for any inspection services once this is all up and running. So I'm assuming by the end of the summer, I'll be in the process of bidding, or subcontracting, or even inquiring to subcontract on different projects. And that's like my new, when I was a kid, I wanted to go to the NBA. At one point, I wanted to go overseas and play basketball because I didn't think I'd make it to the NBA. At this point, the government contracting realm for construction management, inspection, that's like my new MBA now. I know that's something I can do. I got the expertise, I got the talent, I got the network. So, that's like the goal. I wrote down 7 goals for this year, which I'll be sharing on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn this week, actually. I'll put them up tomorrow and start going through my progress of them. But one of them is to start bidding on government contracts and having that certification. So within, in less than 6 months, it'll all be here.
I think that's incredible. So people getting in on the ground floor, this is the time to talk to each other and make those relationships. I'm sure you already have some great relationships with professionals in the workplace, but for those young guys and ladies that are looking to start getting some experience and exposure, I would really take advantage of Trevor's time, especially if you're an alumni of Randolph, St. Mike's, University of Akron. You know, he's going to have some affiliation with you. He might listen to you. He might pay attention to you. So reach out to Trevor and get in on the ground floor. I want to wrap this up. This has been great talking to you. I'm looking forward to continuing a bit of a partnership around getting alumni organized, doing more of these interviews.
For sure.
I'm certainly looking forward to working with you on both of our businesses. I really recommend. I have purchased your book. I'll make sure that I show a copy of it. I don't have it in reach of me, but I'll throw up a video at the beginning of the video when I edit this thing. Thank you so much for spending the time with me here today, Trevor. If you are looking for Trevor's book, For the Hustler, I know part 2 is coming out soon, but For the Hustler is available on Amazon.com and Cassaberry.com.
Yes.
Thank you again. I really appreciate being with me. I'm going to throw a little bit of music from our generation on to wrap this up.
But before you do that, just for you, so you just got a quick clip, you know, because I know for this, we're talking to high school students, college students, and recent college grads. And like, you know, in case they don't get a chance to watch this video up front, at least they can watch this clip right away. The 3 things that each high schooler like should take away from this is 1, have a plan, you know, for post-college before you go, because you don't want to be stuck in the mud, kind of how I was, pivoting as you're going through it. You want to, you know, even though I pivoted, I still had that goal at the end, which is what kept me on track, you know. Number 2, don't overpay. A lot of people are going to tell you it's okay to overpay, but if you know that you have never seen $10,000 in a bank account at one time in your life, it's probably not your best idea, you know, in your best interest to start taking out loans every year for $10,000. And lastly, if you know, need some help looking for a college, or you know, if you're a parent and you need more information about applying to colleges, I did a workshop called Financial College Planning with a woman named Dr. Gina Owens, who's the CEO of DebtFreeScholars.com, and she pretty much she has a PhD and she's never paid a dime for college. She only has used grants and scholarships and low-cost schools to get it all done. And she pretty much teaches parents and students how to do it themselves. If you're a college student and you're watching this video, the 3 things you need to take away. Number 1, you need to, you know, the same way with the high school students, you need to have a plan for after college, or when you're in college, you need to build steps and milestones that lead to that post-college goal. So I knew in order for me to become an engineer, I needed that. I needed to have a good understanding of my electrical engineering material. I needed to have internship experience, and I needed a bachelor's degree. Versus somebody who wants to, you know, do something else may need a master's degree because that helps. For me, I know a master's degree wouldn't help as much as a professional engineering license. So it's like, you just have to make sure you do your research and you ask enough questions to understand what, you know, steps you need to take to reach that goal that you have at the end. That's supposed to keep you on pace. Because if you don't, you always feel far away from your goal. But when you have those steps and milestones, you feel like you're completing things as you go. Secondly, is just network everywhere on campus. It doesn't matter if you're an athlete, go to everybody's games and go to all the organizations' events and network with people, because you never know what people are going to be doing by the time they graduate, because no one is the same when they leave college as when they went in. And lastly, if you kind of need some inspiration on, you know, how to get started in, you know, pursuing a career, or even your mindset going into college or going into entrepreneurship, I would say, again, get this book, For the Hustler, written by me. Nice face on the back that you might not be able to see because of everything with the digital background. But I promise you, it's a book that you're going to want to read. You can find it on Cassaberry.com. You can find it on Amazon. You can DM me. I can send you the link. Or you can go to my wife's book page and publishing company, which is I'mAcosta.com. Cameron interviewed her already. And, you know, it's there. It's $15. You can even pre-order volume 2, which is coming out, which is all teaching everybody everything about investing. And we'll also have 50 investment investment indexes that people can, I mean, stock market indexes that people can invest into, all in the book. And then lastly, if you're a college graduate or a recent college graduate, 3 things to take away from this video is: 1, you need to be able to collaborate your expertise, your experience and your network, because you build your network based on experience. Collaborate that with your expertise. So if you're going to college and you're learning business and all of that stuff, that doesn't mean you have to go be a manager at Staples or a manager at Wall Street or anything like that. You can literally use whatever you already liked, if it was dance, if it was step, if it was robotics, and incorporate that with the stuff you learn for business. Whether that means you go apply for robotics companies, work in the business department there, or you start your own robotics business, or whatever else. You could be a liaison that helps smaller companies get in contact with bigger robotics companies. Or, there's endless possibilities, but the whole thing is you have to kind of create your niche. And to create that niche is usually just a collaboration of 2 bigger, communities. Secondly, you need to produce multiple streams of income. Your one job is not going to cut it. I don't care who you are. And if the one job is cutting it, I'm pretty sure that's not the one income that's paying for everything. Maybe you already had some other stuff that you're not paying for now. And if you only have one income, work on building that second one, whether it's passive income, active income, whatever. And if you're looking for ways to find new income because you don't really know when to start, if you go to cassaberry.com/money, I have the Money Moves Workshop collection. There's 3 tiers to that. It's marketed there, teaching people how to use a financial literacy business to pay off massive debt that they have. But there's a load of stuff for you to learn in there. There's 8 workshops teaching all the fundamentals of business and investing. There's 8 different consultants in there and entrepreneurs and investors, 12 hours of information. And I think the cheapest, we had it on sale. The price, if I'm not mistaken, was like $59 or something like that. If you go there, you can check it out. And it's pretty much always there at cassaberry.com/money. So if you need a jump start for your post-college career, that's a great place to start. And if you buy a consultation or the workshops, they come with a complimentary copy of For the Hustler anyway. So, it's a total package. And those are, the 3 things each person should get from this interview.
Beautiful, Trevor. All right.
Oh, Missy Elliott.
Your phone, I'm on the request.